Chapter 4674. Finally, after an unknown amount of time, Xiao Zhonghan withdrew. His clothes were still neat and tidy, but she was lying on the ground like a broken doll. The man's eyes fell on her body and flashed. Just as he was about to speak, a report suddenly came from outside. "Young Commander! Second Miss Xin is here." Xing Yue. Shen Xin's body, which was lying on the ground, suddenly trembled. She turned her head in disbelief. "Xing Yue, is she? Why did she come back?" Xiao Zhonghan had originally turned to leave. He was impatient to see Xing Yue, but when he heard Shen Xin's words, he suddenly stopped. He sneered and looked back disdainfully at her. "Yes, Xing Yue is back. This commander will naturally make it up to her in the future. As for you, this commander will also make you pay the price for the things you did." Shen Xin's mouth tasted of blood and rust. She saw the ecstasy and impatience in the corners of Xiao Zhonghan's eyes and brows. Her heart, which had long been frozen, fiercely trembled a few times. On what basis? On what basis was he making demands of her 1 second and then leaving for another woman the next? On what basis was he unwilling to listen to her explanation and insisted on forcing those mistakes onto her? She was about to die, so why couldn't he stay for her? The figure in front of her had already left and the door slammed shut. Bang! The loud sound of the door slamming shut abruptly woke Shen Xin. She crawled up from the ground and rushed out in her thin clothes, not even bothering to put on her shoes. She had to keep him. But before she could rush out, the door was pulled open with a whoosh. The man's figure stood coldly in front of her. "You," before she could finish speaking, he coldly interrupted her, "You are not allowed to come out. If you dare to let Xing Yue see you and dirty her eyes, this commander will definitely make you regret living." Shen Xin's body seemed to be nailed to the ground. He didn't come back for her. It was for Xing Yue. In order to not let Xing Yue see her, but she didn't owe Xing Yue anything. Xing Yue's mother and her mother were twin sisters. That year, when her mother was pregnant, Xing Yue's mother seized the opportunity to climb into her father's bed. That was how Xing Yue was born. Because of this, her mother fell ill from accumulated resentment and passed away after giving birth to her. Her father felt that he had let his first wife down and wanted to make it up to his eldest daughter. He was not close to Xing Yue either. But if they asked themselves honestly, they had never treated Xing Yue badly. If Xing Yue hadn't slept with Qin Hai 7 years ago, her father wouldn't have made the decision to marry Xing Yue to Qin Hai. "But I'm your wife. Xing Yue has long been Qin Hai's concubine," she shouted, her voice full of determination. Xiao Zhonghan's entire body became even colder, and the gaze he used to look at Shen Xin also wished he could tear her to shreds. "If it wasn't for you, Xing Yue wouldn't have married Qin Hai. It was all because of this woman. If she hadn't poisoned Xing Yue wouldn't have slept with Qin Hai and even become his third concubine." He knew very well what kind of person Qin Hai was. All these years, he had been constantly expanding his military strength, waiting for this day. He wanted to snatch Xing Yue from the hands of that bastard Qin Hai. He also wanted Shen Xin, this vicious woman, to receive the punishment she deserved. "Someone come!" Xiao Zhonghan suddenly shouted. "Lock her up for this, Marshal. She absolutely cannot be allowed to appear in front of Xing Yue." "Yes, young Marshal." Shen Xin panicked. She looked at Xiao Zhonghan, her face full of disbelief. She struggled, her legs already numb from the cold. "Xiao Zhonghan, I am your wife. Did you forget that it's my birthday today? That scarf was really a gift from Miss Chu. If you don't believe me, you can investigate. I also didn't drug Xing Yue. If you don't believe me, you can also investigate." Her words were spoken extremely quickly, but Xiao Zhonghan's expression did not change in the slightest. What did her birthday have to do with him? Whether she had done anything or not, he was naturally very clear about it. Those photos of her talking and laughing with a man, how could they be fake? The coldness in his eyes was like a raging sea, engulfing everything. "Are they all dead? Lock her up for this, Marshal." "Xiao Zhonghan, I didn't do it. Xiao Zhonghan, I regret it. I will never fall in love with you in my next life." Chapter 4675. In the depths of the chaotic cosmos where darkness and coldness coexisted. A streak of light tore through the darkness and instantly shot off into the distance. It was a huge divine ship. Jun and Mayuja stood side by side on the deck as they looked at the countless fragments of continents and meteors that flew past them. "Brother Ma, are you sure it's this way?" Juan could not help but frown as he looked at the endless darkness ahead. It had already been 49 days since he and Mayuja had left the Divine Blaze domain. However, it was as if they were walking in the same spot. Apart from the fragments of continents, they were surrounded by countless shattered meteors. Mayuja chuckled. "Brother Jua, don't worry. I'm very familiar with the ruins of the Overgod domain. I won't lead you the wrong way." Although Juan had his doubts, he still chose to believe in Mayuja. Although the fatty was often unreliable, he was still quite reliable when it came to important matters. After flying for a few more days, Mayuja suddenly stopped the ship. "What's wrong?" Juan looked at Mayuja, scratching his head as an ominous feeling rose in his heart. "We seem to have gone in the wrong direction. I remember that it should be that way." "No, it should be the other way." "That's not right either." Mayuja smiled awkwardly. Juan was speechless. After a few months, the two of them finally arrived at the ruins of the Overgod world. "Are these the ruins of the Overgod domain?" Juan could not help but frown as he looked ahead. The ruins of the Overgod domain that appeared before him was no longer a complete domain. Instead, they were fragments of continents that had been shattered into countless regions. However, the fragments seemed to be pulled by some kind of power as they constantly revolved around the center. Juan's gaze landed on the center of the ruins. A gigantic sphere hovered there. This sphere was emitting a scorching and dazzling light, which was many times brighter than the sun. The origin of the domain? Juan stared at the huge glowing sphere and immediately sensed the vigorous and blazing origin source aura emanating from it. Moreover, she could feel that the origin energy within the ball was many times more powerful than the origin energy of the Abyss realm. This Master God realm has been destroyed for who knows how many years. Why is its realm source still preserved until now? Juan asked in confusion. Mayuja smiled faintly and said, "Brother Jua, there's something you don't know. You probably can't even begin to imagine how powerful the Master God realm is right now. In the past, there were several existences who could directly face the primordial gods. The strength of this realm is unprecedented in the entire primal chaos." Hearing this, Juan was shocked. Facing the immemorial gods directly? What kind of great power did this require? In the entire 100 outer realms, the most powerful people were far inferior to the archaic gods, yet several of them had appeared in the Master God realm. This was just too shocking. Moreover, after countless years, 99% of this domain's origin has been lost. Mayuja spoke slowly. His words were earth-shattering, completely shocking Juan's soul. The remnant origin that had lost 99% of its origin was still stronger than the Abyss realm source. Just how powerful was the complete Master God realm? Such a vigorous and high-level origin. Has no powerhouse discovered it after countless years? Juan asked with a frown. Although the Master God realm was located in a very remote location and it would be difficult to discover it, after so many years, there must have been a peerless powerhouse who could find it. However, after countless years, the Master God realm's origin was still far away. How could Juan not be shocked? Mayuja sneered and said, "Do you think it's easy to obtain this origin?" With that, Mayuja waved his right hand, and a huge stone that was hundreds of feet long was pulled by his power and flew through the air, smashing heavily into the ruins of the Master God realm. The moment the stone fell into the ruins, the ear-piercing sound of chains rang out, and then countless pitch-black figures rushed out, fighting to be the first to launch a fierce attack on the stone. In the blink of an eye, the huge stone was shattered into countless pieces. Juan's pupils shrank into needles as he stared at the countless strange figures bound by chains in the ruins of the Master God realm. Although these strange figures were the same as humans, their skin was greenish-black, and their skin was covered with dense black scales. Their eyes were pitch black, and their bodies exuded a strange demonic aura. This demonic aura was completely different from the demonic aura of Zhuowen's limitless demonic scripture. This demonic aura was completely filled with pure evil, hostility, brutality, and all kinds of shocking negative energy emotions. What are these things? Zhuowen said with a slight frown. They're demonic puppets. Ma Yujie said with a serious look. Demonic puppets? What's that? Zhuowen said with a little knowledge. This was the first time he had heard of these so-called demonic puppets. Ma Yujie said in a low voice. These demonic puppets should have entered the ruins of the Master God realm when they were alive to seize the origin. However, they were all contaminated by the demonic aura of the primordial demonic seed and turned into strange demonic puppets. Primordial demonic seed? Zhuowen frowned. He was getting more and more confused. This so-called primordial demonic seed was something he had never heard of before. I can't explain the primordial demonic seed to you in a short time. Let's find a way to enter the origin at the core of the ruins first. I'm 80% sure that the last primordial stone is in the origin world. Ma Yujie said with a serious look. The origin world was an independent space world. Cultivating or comprehending in it would bring endless benefits. Back then, Duan Jipeng, Ziyang, and Luoya had cultivated in the origin world. In the end, Duan Jipeng successfully broke through to the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. This Master God realm was extremely extraordinary. Even though 99% of the origin world had been lost, the world within it was probably not simple. If the last primordial stone was really in there, Yuan felt that it was normal. Brother Zhua, I have an item that can temporarily suppress the demonic aura of the primordial demonic seed and prevent us from being contaminated by the demonic aura. However, if we want to enter the core of the ruins, we have to break through these demonic puppets. Ma Yujie looked at Zhuowen and continued, these demonic puppets are really powerful. The weakest is at the late stage of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, while the strongest is already at the 10,000 techniques return to one. You and I have to work together. Otherwise, we won't be able to enter at all. Zhuowen glanced at Ma Yujie and did not object. Ma Yujie grinned and took out a huge imperial canopy. He took out the imperial canopy. Immediately, the imperial canopy spewed out endless blazing light and floated above Zhuowen and Ma Yujie's heads. Endless brilliance sprinkled down. The demonic aura not far away seemed to have met its natural enemy and gradually retreated, not daring to approach. Let's go. Ma Yujie glanced at Zhuowen and took the lead. Zhuowen was not willing to be left behind. The moment the two of them stepped into the ruins of the Master God realm side by side, the entire ruins resounded with the sound of countless chains. Demonic puppets flew wildly toward Zhuowen and Ma Yujie, instantly drowning the two of them. Chapter 4676. Shen Xin stood at the entrance of Paramount. She was dressed in luxurious and exquisite clothes, which did not match the coarse smell of powder here. As a result, when people passed by her, they subconsciously avoided her. She tightened her grip on the gift box bag. Finally, she stood in front of Chu Qingwan. The person who used to stand on the stage and wait for her to give her a gift was now standing in front of her. Madam, I like this gift very much. Please thank the young marshal for me. Thank him for his love. Chu Qingwan's expression was gentle and her smile was gentle, but there was a trace of sympathy and pity in her eyes when she looked at Shen Xin. Under her gaze, Shen Xin only wanted to escape, but, is there anything else? Chu Qingwan asked. The elegant smile on her face cracked inch by inch. Shen Xin's words were stuck in her throat. Embarrassment quickly climbed up from the bottom of her heart. Her voice was extremely soft. Miss Chu, can you teach me how to sing? Sing? Chu Qingwan was surprised. Shen Xin gritted her teeth. Zhong Han said that he wants to hear me sing, so I want to learn from you. Chu Qingwan was even more surprised. Her face was charming and moving, especially under the light. Her eyes moved and were full of charm. His eyes were filled with surprise, pity, sarcasm. Shen Xin's fingers trembled slightly. Her small face was pale, and her fingertips were cold. Even her body, which was wrapped in fur, quickly turned cold. All right, I'll teach you if you want to learn. What does Madam want to learn? The night was long. Shen Xin and Chu Qingwan walked and spoke on the quiet and empty stage. Under the light, they practiced over and over again. Their voices came from the empty space, long and quiet. Her voice was hoarse, and layers of cold sweat appeared on her body. Shen Xin's small face became paler and paler, as white as paper. Thinking about the past, I still feel regret. When I left, the flowers were like brocade. Today, the willow on the roof, bang, there was a loud sound. Chu Qingwan came back to her senses and looked back. She saw Shen Xin, who had fallen on the stage. Madam! She was shocked. Shen Xin's body was curled up on the table like a shrimp, and her thin body couldn't stop trembling. Madam, what's wrong? Chu Qingwan wanted to reach out to support her, but Shen Xin gritted her teeth and waved her hand. I'm fine. She could endure the pain for a while and it would pass. Chu Qingwan was shocked by the bone-piercing pain and the beads of sweat on her forehead. She wanted to call for help, but Chu Qingwan held her back tightly. No need to call for help. This is an old problem. After an unknown period of time, Shen Xin's body finally stopped trembling and her complexion improved slightly. Madam, is this stomach cancer? Chu Qingwan suddenly asked. Shen Xin looked up. Chu Qingwan continued, my sister, she also passed away with stomach cancer. Shen Xin felt bitter. The chances of curing stomach cancer were almost zero. She nodded. Chu Qingwan reached out to help her up, her expression complicated. Does the young commander know? I don't know. Shen Xin smiled. Chu Qingwan pursed her lips. She wanted to say something, but she didn't know what to say. Yesterday, she had naturally seen the young commander's disgust and dislike for Shen Xin. If he knew about Shen Xin's body, would he still treat her like this? Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. After all, Shen Xin had done a lot of evil. In a daze, she heard Shen Xin's words again. Please help me hide this matter, Miss Chu. I don't want him to know. Miss Chu, many thanks. Faced with such a pair of pleading eyes, Chu Qingwan finally nodded. Let's continue, Miss Chu. Shen Xin stood up. She still remembered Xiao Zonghan's request. She still wanted to learn how to sing when her body was in such a condition. Chu Qingwan's voice faltered. Why do you have to do this? Chu Qingwan had personally seen how painful it was for someone with late-stage stomach cancer. It was because she had seen it that she didn't understand why Shen Xin was so insistent. Wasn't it good to tell Xiao Zonghan? He likes it. 1 sentence, 3 words. He liked it. Because of such a laughable and lamentable reason, Shen Xin supported her seriously ill body to learn how to sing on a cold winter night in such a place. Chu Qingwan's eyelashes moved slightly. She could see that Shen Xin didn't have much time left. This woman. Chapter 4677. He took off his boots, washed up, and got into bed. That night, without Shen Xin by his side, Xiao Zonghan felt that he slept especially well. It was not until late the next day that he was awakened by the soft footsteps of the servants outside. Getting out of bed, his eyes were still drowsy. Looking up, he saw that the hands of the quartz clock had already reached 10. Damn it, where was that woman? Why didn't she wake him up earlier? After cursing in his heart, Xiao Zonghan suddenly froze. He remembered that the woman seemed to have run out last night. Run away? It was late at night and the world was not peaceful. She did not know many people here, so where could she have gone? Moreover, she had been spoiled since childhood and had never seen the suffering of the world. Xiao Zonghan sneered and waited for Shen Xin to obediently roll back. He first went to Xin Xingyue's place to accompany her for breakfast. After comforting her for a while, Xiao Zonghan took a car to the general office. The young commander was ruthless and decisive in his actions, and his subordinates were like iron rods in his hands. When he walked in, no one dared to raise their heads to look at him, even if this person's status was once lower than theirs. From the outer circle of errand runners to the young commander who held real power, everyone envied him for meeting Xin Chenghe, except for himself. Sitting in the large, custom-made chair, he did not have time to do anything before the door was pushed open from the outside. Lu Rong winked and looked him up and down. Oh, which beauty was it last night? So erosive that even our young Commander Xiao is reluctant to get out of bed? Lu Rong and Xiao Zonghan were true brothers who had gone through life and death together. The two were originally from Shun Qinghe's outer circle and went on missions together for several years. Later, when Xiao Zonghan became the young commander, he also asked for Lu Rong. In front of him, Lu Rong never knew what high or low status was and did not pay attention to the way he spoke. Brothers were brothers. Xiao Zonghan glanced at him. Do you need something? If you don't, then get out. Alright. Your words are so unpleasant to hear, no wonder people hate you. Lu Rong's expression straightened and also withdrew his sloppy expression. He threw the letter in his hand onto Xiao Zonghan's table. Qin Hai had someone deliver this. Speaking of which, did you detain that person's second concubine? I'm not scolding you, but Xin Xingyue has been married to Qin Hai for so many years. Why are you still thinking about her? Can't you properly? Xiao Zonghan shot him a cold glare. Lu Rong rubbed his nose and didn't dare to continue. However, no one knew more about the matter between Xiao Zonghan, Xin Xingyue, and Shun Xin than Lu Rong. He looked at Xiao Zonghan's expression and tried to restrain himself, but in the end he could no longer hold back. No. No matter how good second young Miss Xin is, she's already married. No matter how bad eldest young Miss Xin is, she's still been your wife for several years. Her heart is completely tied to you. Scram. This time, Xiao Zonghan didn't even bother to look at him and directly kicked him out. Lu Rong was fearless. No matter what, Xin Qinghe had saved him. He had picked him up when he was about to starve to death. To return the favor, he could disregard Xin Xin and Xiao Zonghan's feelings, but he still needed to advise them, young Miss Xin is really good to you. I'm so envious. There are so many young men for her to choose from, but she only likes you. All these years, you've embarrassed her in every way, but I've never seen her complain about you. Where could he find such a wife? Before he could finish his sentence, whoosh! With a thud, a high-quality Duan Yen narrowly missed the top of his head and landed on the carpet behind him. He turned his head to look. Fortunately, the blanket was thick enough. Smacking his lips, Lu Rong finally obediently rubbed his nose and slipped away when he sensed the coldness emanating from Xiao Zonghan's body. The door closed in front of him. Without Lu Rong's chatter, the air became still again. Chapter 4679. Sush, 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 sush. Zhuo Wen and Ma Yujie's expressions changed slightly as they discovered that demonic puppets had appeared in the walls around them and were attacking them like locusts. Why are there so many demonic puppets? Ma Yujie's expression changed drastically. The number of demonic puppets had far exceeded his expectations. These demonic puppets were densely packed, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. They instantly slammed into the area where Ma Yujie and Zhuo Wen were standing. Boom, boom, boom. The demon-subduing bowl spewed out endless golden light, blocking the demonic puppets outside. However, there were too many demonic puppets. They swarmed over and crashed into them without any regard for their lives. Zhuan and Ma Yujie couldn't help but retreat. These demonic puppets are protecting the demon infant. They're purposely pushing us away. Zhuan frowned as he stared at the demon infant in the center of the empty space. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but the demon infant seemed to have revealed a strange smile. Brother Ma, is there no other way? If this continues, we'll be forced to leave this place. Zhuan couldn't help but look at Ma Yujie and ask in a low voice. He knew that this fatty had many trump cards and knew far more secrets than him. He must have a corresponding solution. Ma Yujie scratched his head and said solemnly, there's another way, and that is to use the primordial technique to absorb the primordial demonic qi and weaken the demon infant's power. However, Zhuo Wen's eyes narrowed and he couldn't help but look at Ma Yujie and ask, however what? Ma Yujie said in a low voice, although the primordial technique is all-encompassing, it still depends on the cultivator's limits. The primordial demonic qi isn't ordinary demonic qi. It can easily affect one's mind. If one isn't careful, it's easy to fall into the demonic path and become a demonic puppet for the demon infant. This method isn't advisable. Zhuo Wen's expression changed slightly and he asked in a low voice, is there no other way? Ma Yujie thought for a moment and shook his head. This is the only way I can think of right now. The others are just a drop in the bucket. We can't break through the encirclement of so many demonic puppets. Then let's try this method first. If something goes wrong, immediately stop the primordial demonic qi, Zhuowen said in a low voice. Hearing this, Ma Yujie sighed and nodded. He and Zhuowen had already barged into this place. If they were to just leave like this, he would be very unwilling. The demon-subduing alms bowl was still enveloping the two of them. Endless golden light sprayed out, isolating them from the endless demonic puppets. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie sat down cross-legged and began circulating the primordial grandness technique. Crash! All of a sudden, the Archean demon qi inside the Archean demon seed surged into Zhuowen and Ma Yujie's bodies. Just as Ma Yujie had said, the primordial technique had an all-encompassing attribute. When Zhuowen cultivated this technique, he had absorbed many kinds of energy that he didn't need. This also caused Zhuowen's god power to have many different attributes. In addition, he had cultivated the limitless devil cannon before, so absorbing the devil qi was not difficult for Zhuowen. Such as surging devil qi. Is this the primordial demon qi? The moment he absorbed the primordial demon qi, Zhuowen's pupils shrank as he felt the power and terror of the primordial demon qi. Just as Ma Yujie had said, the primordial demon qi could easily affect one's mind. As soon as he started to absorb it, Zhuowen found that his mind was filled with endless negative emotions. If an ordinary cultivator absorbed a little bit of primordial demon qi, they would go crazy. However, the primordial technique that Zhuowen cultivated was extraordinary. It could filter out most of the negative emotions. Moreover, Zhuowen had two primordial stones on him, so the effects were not too great. What surprised Zhuowen the most was that as he continued to absorb the primordial demon qi, his understanding of the limitless devil cannon deepened. The limitless devil cannon was divided into 4 levels. He had successfully cultivated 2 levels and unlocked the demonic eye and demonic die. He had tried to cultivate it later, but it was difficult for him to break through to the 3rd level. The main reason was that there was no high-grade devil qi in the 100 domains. The limitless devil scriptures cultivation just so happened to require devil qi the most. Moreover, the higher the grade of devil qi, the more terrifying and powerful the divine ability cultivated would be. Now that the primordial demon qi was far stronger than ordinary devil qi, it was the perfect stepping stone for him to cultivate the limitless devil cannon. As the two of them continued to absorb the primordial demon qi that originally filled the entire space gradually thinned out. As the primordial demon qi thinned out, the number of devil puppets in the surroundings also gradually decreased. These devil puppets relied on the primordial demon qi to move. Now that the primordial demon qi was decreasing, they naturally kept retreating. When the devil puppets had decreased by half, Ma Yujie suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with a scarlet light, filled with violence, hostility, and killing intent. This primordial demon qi is really terrifying. Although it is filtered by the primordial technique, the negative emotions contained in it are still terrifying. Ma Yujie muttered to himself. His hands formed seals, and with the help of the demon-subduing bowl's power, he gradually offset the negative emotions in his body. His eyes were filled with lingering fear. When his eyes regained clarity, he was shocked to find that Zhuowen was still sitting cross-legged beside him, and he was still absorbing the primordial demon qi. This kid. Ma Yujie was dumbfounded. He obviously did not expect Zhuowen to still be absorbing the primordial demon qi. Zhuowen has 2 primordial stones, so it should be reasonable for him to have a stronger resistance against the primordial demon qi. Ma Yujie's eyes revealed a pondering look, and the shock in his heart gradually calmed down. 2 hours, 4 hours. 2 hours passed, and the devil puppets in the surroundings of the space had almost disappeared. Zhuowen was still absorbing the primordial demon qi. Why is this guy still absorbing the primordial demon qi? Is he not affected at all? Ma Yujie's face was filled with disbelief. Suddenly, Zhuowen opened his eyes. The depths of his eyes were scarlet, as if he was a peerless demon. However, within the scarlet red eyes, They were incomparably clear. The limitless demon book has finally broken through to the third level. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up slightly, and he was in a good mood. The primordial demon chi was indeed extraordinary. He had only absorbed it for less than a day, and he had broken through to the third level like a hot knife through butter. What surprised him even more was that the third level of the limitless demon book gave him a divine ability called Demon Body. He could summon the demon armor from the depths of the void, cover his whole body, and transform into a peerless demon. At this moment, Zhuowen's attack, speed, defense, and so on would increase by hundreds and thousands of times, and his strength would increase tremendously. What surprised him even more was that the demon armor was extremely hard, and ordinary attacks could not break it at all. Zhuon stood up straight, and just as he was about to look for Ma Yujie, he was shocked to find that Ma Yujie had hidden far away and was looking at him in horror. "Brother Ma, what's wrong with you? Have the devil puppets retreated?" Zhuon looked around and found that the endless devil puppets in the open space were all gone, and could not help but ask in puzzlement. Ma Yujie looked at Zhuon nervously and said, "You absorbed so much primordial demon chi. Are you the real person or not? If you don't tell the truth, this fat lord will destroy you." Zhuon was stunned and immediately reacted, knowing that this Ma Yujie must have misunderstood something. Chapter 4680. "Brother Ma, I feel that you have some misunderstanding about me. I am the real deal." Zhuon frowned. Seeing that Ma Yujie was hiding far away, he couldn't help but step forward to reason with him. Unexpectedly, Ma Yujie was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He ran to the other side with his short legs and distanced himself from Zhuon. "Don't come over now. The more you say that, the more suspicious you are. Do you think this fatty is stupid? Do I look like someone who is so easily fooled?" The fat on Ma Yujie's face trembled as he stared at Zhuon and said nervously. Zhuon had a helpless expression and could only stop in his tracks. In the end, after Zhuowen's persuasion, Ma Yujie finally believed in Zhuon completely. "Brother Zhua, how did you do it? After absorbing so much primordial demon chi, your mind isn't affected." Ma Yujie approached Zhuowen, his eyes full of eagerness as he asked. "This is my secret. Forgive me for not telling you." Zhuowen retorted indifferently. How could he not know what this fatty was planning? Naturally, he couldn't tell this fatty. In the past, he had always thought that the limitless demon book was just an ordinary demon Dao cultivation method. But now, he didn't think so. This demonic book could actually absorb the primordial demonic chi to advance in cultivation, which showed how extraordinary it was. Especially when he found that the limitless demon book and primordial technique worked together, there was an extraordinary sense of tacit understanding. He didn't know if it was a coincidence or there was really some kind of connection. But he knew that by relying on the limitless demon book and primordial technique, he could absorb primordial demon chi to cultivate the limitless demon book without fear. He was looking forward to what kind of more powerful demon Dao abilities the limitless demon book would give him after he cultivated to the fourth level. Next, we should think of a way to get the primordial stone in the demon infant's hands. And how should we deal with the demon infant? Zhuon looked at Ma Yujie and asked. Zhuon knew nothing about the archaic demon seed, so he naturally had no idea how to deal with the demon infant. He could only ask Ma Yujie for help. "Of course I have a way to deal with the demon infant. However, this method is too powerful. We can eliminate the demon infant while it's still asleep, but I'm afraid that it will cause damage to the primordial stone." Ma Yujie's brows furrowed tightly. He was obviously worried that his method was inappropriate and stood there hesitantly. The only way to retrieve the primordial stone is to shatter the sphere and snatch the primordial stone from the demon infant. Zhuon pointed at the sphere in the middle of the pillar and said in a low voice. Ma Yujie sighed softly and said, "I'm afraid not." That sphere was formed from the demon infant's most powerful magic power, and it contains half of the demon infant's magic power. Normal methods can't break it. The only way is the method I mentioned earlier that can eliminate the demon infant in one fell swoop, but Zhuon naturally understood what Ma Yujie was worried about. Since this sphere is formed from the demon infant's magic power, Won't the sphere disappear if we absorb all the magic power on the surface of the sphere? Zhuan said. Are you crazy? Do you know how terrifying the magic power contained in the demon infant is? Even if it's half, it's still thousands of times more than the primordial demon chi we absorbed in the open space just now. It's not something we can absorb. It's going to kill us. Ma Yujie shook his head repeatedly, completely disagreeing with Zhuowen's method. Let me try. Zhuowen stepped into the air and floated in front of the sphere. Brother Zhuo, don't be rash. You're playing with your life by doing this. Ma Yujie hurriedly said. Zhuowen looked down at Ma Yujie and said in amusement, Brother Ma, haven't you always liked to trick me? If I die, won't that be exactly what you want? Ma Yujie fell silent and shook his head. I'm just taking advantage of you because of my personality. But I don't want you to die like this. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Zhuowen smiled indifferently and looked at the sphere in front of him. He took a deep breath and slowly placed his right palm on the sphere's surface. At this moment, Zhuowen circulated the primordial grandmist technique and limitless devil tome and began to madly absorb the magic power on the sphere's surface. When the demon infant's magic power entered Zhuowen's body, endless ruthlessness, killing intent, and other negative emotions rushed into Zhuowen's mind. However, these negative emotions were basically all absorbed and digested by the limitless devil tome, so their effect on Zhuowen was negligible. Time gradually passed. It was unknown how long had passed, but it felt as if an entire century had passed. Zhuowen suddenly realized that the limitless devil tome in his body had successfully broken through to the fourth stage. He could feel that the magic power in his body had reached a terrifying level. After the limitless devil tome broke through to the fourth stage, it also gave Zhuowen a devil Dao ability. This devil Dao ability was called Devil Domain. What surprised Zhuowen the most was that the devil domain was divided into 18 layers, just like the 18 layers of hell. The opening of each level required a huge amount of devil chi cultivation in order to successfully open. Now that he had just obtained the devil domain, naturally, he had not opened any of the 18 layers yet. He also realized that the sphere's magic power was still very rich, so he continued to absorb magic power and open up the devil domain. The rolling magic power was like a creator, and it began to open up the devil domain layer by layer. Every layer of the devil domain was filled with magic power, and there were many demonic creatures. The lower the layer, the more powerful the magic power and demonic creatures. When all 18 layers of the devil domain were opened up, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were no longer crimson red. Instead, they had turned pitch black, making him look exceptionally strange and sinister. When Ma Yujie saw this scene, he had already hidden far away. In fact, the current Zhuowen's aura was too strange. His entire body was filled with terrifying magic power, and his pitch-black eyes were emotionless and cold. The current Zhuowen was more like a demon than a demon. Ma Yujie only felt that the current Zhuowen was very dangerous, and he did not dare to approach him easily. Suddenly, a crisp cracking sound rang out. The spherical light barrier on the surface of the demonic nascent soul was riddled with countless cracks before shattering with a loud boom. A terrifying magic power came crashing down like countless stars, causing the entire space to bear a terrifying pressure. This brat really did absorb all of the light barrier's demonic energy, but Ma Yujie looked at Zhuowen, who was covered in demonic energy. Although he wanted to go and take the primordial stone, he was still quite cautious and hesitant. At this moment, Zhuowen, who was surrounded by magic power, suddenly reached out with his right hand and grabbed the primordial stone in the demon infant's palm. The moment he grabbed the primordial stone, the demon infant suddenly opened his pitch-black eyes, and his small hand covered with red patterns grabbed Zhuowen's wrist. Chapter 4683. Boom. Shen Xin felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her hands tightly clenched as she looked at him in disbelief. But the man in front of her had his lips curled in ridicule. It was so obvious that the rest of her words were stuck in her throat. A cold glint flashed through Xiao Zhonghan's eyes. A person like you should have died long ago. Don't worry, if you truly die, I will definitely have the entire Shao Shui food draped in red decorations to celebrate. With a bang, the door was closed. Shen Xin powerlessly collapsed to the ground. The current her simply could not bear Shao Zonghan. Her hands did not listen to her and trembled like sifting chaff. Elder Lin's words echoed in her ears, "Madam, your body. If you properly recuperate, you should still have a year left." As if her entire body had been repeatedly crushed, Shen Xin pulled off a pillowcase and stuffed it into her mouth. The pain from her illness was not as easy to endure as she had imagined. Her intestines felt like they were being pulled out inch by inch. In order to not disturb Shao Zonghan, Shen Xin desperately clenched her teeth and endured. Cold as water. Shen Xin stood outside the door for a long time before taking a deep breath and pushing open the door. Shao Zonghan raised his head and his gaze fell on her body. "Zonghan, you were looking for me." Shen Xin was dressed as usual, and her hair was neatly tied up. At first glance, she appeared dignified and virtuous. But Shao Zonghan knew exactly what kind of person she was. The corner of his mouth curled and he threw over an exquisite and gorgeous gift box. "Send this to Paramount." Qing Wan threw a tantrum. "Go apologize to her. Just say that this marshal will compensate her another day." Hearing his words, Shen Xin's eyes dimmed. The gift box was very light, but she felt that it was incomparably heavy as she held it in her hands. Taking a deep breath, Shen Xin forced herself to wear a gentle smile. "Okay, I will definitely personally deliver it to her." Respectful, gentle, treating him as the sky, treating him as the earth. Shao Zonghan was angered. This woman was really good at enduring and acting. Since it was like this. He smiled maliciously. Qing Wan said that she always sings for others to hear. Tomorrow, prepare to sing for her. As he spoke, he seemed extremely satisfied with his sudden idea. Right? Just like this, Qing Wan will definitely be very happy. Shen Xin's shoulders trembled slightly. Trembling from his shoulders to his hands, then to his feet. "Shao Zonghan, do you really hate me this much? Hate me? You hate me so much that you don't even want to leave me a little bit of dignity?" Shao Zonghan narrowed his eyes, appreciating with satisfaction the woman's suddenly pale face and trembling body like a fallen leaf. "Shen Xin, since you so yearn to become the young marshal's wife, now, isn't this exactly what you wanted?" Mockery and smugness flashed through his eyes. But soon his mocking and complacent expression froze on his face. The woman's trembling body suddenly calmed down. A respectful smile once again appeared on her face. She looked at him and said, "All right, whatever Zonghan says. Tomorrow I will sing it for Miss Chu." Sing Qing Wan's favorite song. "All right." Shen Xin did not know how she walked out of Shao Zonghan's room. Her cheeks were stiff and her steps were faster with each step. In the end, he shut himself in the room with a bang. His body went limp and fell down the door. "My heart hurts so much. It hurts so much here." Chapter 4685. The world spun and Jun felt as if he was floating in the air. He wanted to move but found that his body was stiff and he couldn't move at all. It was as if the blood in his body had frozen. "What's going on?" Jun was shocked. He tried to open his eyes but found that his eyelids seemed to be filled with lead. He couldn't open them at all. At the same time, he also found that his 5 senses, divine sense, and so on were all blocked by some mysterious power. He couldn't sense what was going on around him at all. However, he could feel that he seemed to be drifting in some kind of spatial passage. Moreover, the speed was so fast that he felt as if he was caught off guard. Suddenly, 4 purple lights appeared in the depths of Zhuowen's mind. The purple lights became clearer and clearer. Only then did he realize that the source of the purple lights were 4 stones. Primordial stones? Zhuowen naturally recognized these 4 stones. Weren't they the primordial stones? In an instant, endless purple light soared into the sky and enveloped his entire mind. In the end, there was only endless purple light left in front of his eyes. In the endless purple light, he saw the vast starry sky and the prosperous and lush domain continents floating in the starry sky. He also saw the huge primordial tree that stood in the starry sky and connected the ends of heaven and earth. He also saw the huge and mysterious primordial star floating at the end of the sky. His gaze fell on the primordial star. His gaze constantly zoomed in and penetrated deep into the primordial star. He saw many imposing and powerful figures standing in the primordial star. They were like an army that had gathered in a vast and boundless plain. These imposing figures were surrounded by divine brilliance. Rays of multicolored light contained an aura that made one's heart palpitate. Primordial gods? Zhuan murmured softly. He looked deeply at the army that seemed to be made up of primordial gods. Suddenly, Zhuan noticed that at the end of the primordial god army, rolling demonic fog was sweeping over. It was surging over in an overwhelming manner. As the demonic mist rolled over, the earth seemed to have been dyed black. It looked strange and deep. Countless divine grasses, divine trees, and other things that were full of vitality were all withered and destroyed. In the depths of the demonic fog, pairs of crimson eyes were revealed. They were terrifying demonic creatures. Primordial sky fiend? Zhuan narrowed his eyes, revealing a solemn expression. He had absorbed the primordial demon chi before and had also come into contact with the demon infant in the primordial demon seed. He could tell at a glance that the demon chi that was sweeping over was the primordial demon chi. Is this the battle between the primordial gods and the primordial heavenly demons? Zhuan thought to himself. When he looked back at the battlefield, he saw that the primordial god and the primordial heavenly demon were already fighting. The blazing divine radiance and the gloomy demonic chi collided in the heavens and the earth. It was as if the heavens and the earth had been split into light and darkness. It was an exceptionally terrifying sight. Is this the power of the primordial gods and primordial heavenly demons? How powerful! Zhuan's expression changed completely as he watched the battle. Whether it was the primordial gods or primordial heavenly demons, their power far exceeded that of the chaotic starry sky. In his eyes, the Lord of the Abyss was already extremely terrifying. However, in this battle, any primordial god or primordial heavenly demon could kill the Lord of the Abyss in an instant. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. Zhuan could not help but think of the primordial demon seed's demon infant. Although the latter's strength was far inferior to that of an adult primordial heavenly demon, it was still an infant. It had not yet grown up or even hatched. Even so, the demon infant's strength far exceeded Zhuan's. If he had not relied on the limitless demonic tome to absorb more than half of the demon infant's demonic chi, he would probably have died in the ruins of the Master God world. On the battlefield, the battle became more and more intense and terrifying. The vast plains were torn apart by the terrifying battle, forming a bottomless abyss. One primordial god and primordial heavenly demon after another fell into the depths of the abyss, forming mountains of corpses and seas of blood. However, what made Zhuan fearful was that after those primordial heavenly demons died, the other primordial heavenly demons actually pounced on them and devoured their corpses. Meanwhile, the auras of those primordial heavenly demons who devoured the corpses of their own kind actually skyrocketed, reaching an unprecedentedly terrifying level. As the primordial heavenly demons continued to fall and devour and grow stronger, the situation on the battlefield that was originally evenly matched gradually turned. The primordial god's side was gradually suppressed by the primordial heavenly demons. No wonder Brother Ma mentioned that the primordial god would suffer a crushing defeat. It turns out that these primordial heavenly demons can strengthen themselves by devouring the corpses of their own kind. This is unexplainable. Zhuan's gaze was solemn. It had to be said that the primordial heavenly demons' ability to strengthen themselves by devouring their own kind was truly terrifying. As long as the primordial heavenly demons were not completely eradicated in one go, the primordial heavenly demons' side would only grow stronger as the battle continued, while the primordial god's side would be constantly weakened and would definitely suffer a crushing defeat in the end. In addition, the primordial heavenly demon's ability to reproduce was extremely terrifying. Now, Zhuan more or less understood why the primordial god would be suppressed by the primordial heavenly demons to such an extent. Soon, the scene gradually disappeared, and Juan also discovered that the feeling of floating around him gradually disappeared. His feet stepped on the ground, and he suddenly felt a sense of steadiness. This is... Juan slowly opened his eyes and looked around. Only then did he realize that he was standing on the peak of a mountain that was as black as ink. Around him, there was an endless stretch of huge mountains, and peaks stood tall on the mountain range. From afar, it looked like a crouching dragon with sharp horny barbs on its back. What a strong demon chi! Juan looked up and saw that there was no blue sky or white clouds in the sky above the mountain. Instead, there were rolling black clouds. In the depths of the black clouds, there were dense blood-red thunderbolts lingering. The terrifying roar of thunder constantly resounded in his ears, causing his face to turn ugly and his gaze to turn gloomy. The entire mountain range, or rather, the entire heaven and earth, was filled with primordial demon chi that made him fearful. It was like a strange demon realm. Suddenly, Juan seemed to have sensed something, and his gaze fell on a mountain peak on the left. He saw that there was also a figure standing on that mountain peak. The figure was extremely bloated, and at first glance, it looked like a round ball. Mayujie? Juan immediately recognized the fat figure and could not help but rush to the mountain peak on the left. When he landed on the mountain peak, he looked at Mayujie and realized that Mayujie had turned a deaf ear to his arrival and was only staring blankly at the sky. Juan originally wanted to question the fat man about the passageway on the primordial tree. However, when he saw that Mayujie was in a daze, and there was a deep sadness in the depths of his eyes, he did not question him again. This is the primordial star system? Juan was silent for a moment and suddenly asked. Mayujie sighed deeply and said with a bitter smile, "Yes. This is the primordial star system, but it is no longer the primordial star system of the past." Chapter 4686. Brother Ma, since you used to be a creature of the immemorial star system, you should be quite familiar with it. Where is this place? Juan looked around and found that the surrounding mountain range was filled with rolling demonic chi and blood lightning. It was like hell on earth. He couldn't help but ask. Mayujie regained his calm. He looked around and said with a frown, "This place is completely shrouded in demonic chi. The terrain has changed greatly, but I can still distinguish a part of it." As he spoke, Mayujie flew up into the sky and looked around. After a while, he landed beside Juan. "Did you see anything?" Juan asked. "If I'm not wrong, this should be a mountain range in the 7 constellations star system in the south, Chariot star system." Mayujie looked serious and continued, "Before I died, Chariot star system was still the territory of the immemorial gods." Now it seems, although Mayujie didn't finish his words, Juan could guess what he meant. Chariot star system had been occupied by the immemorial heavenly demons in the years after Mayujie died. "Where is the immemorial god's territory?" Juan asked. Mayujie smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Juan, I don't have the ability to predict the future. I've been away for too long. I don't know what the current situation of the immemorial star system is." Suddenly, Juan and Mayujie's expressions changed greatly. They couldn't help but look up at the sky. In the sky ahead, rolling demonic chi was sweeping over at an extremely fast speed. In the rolling demonic chi, pairs of scarlet eyes flickered with a strange red light. They were looking at the mountain peak where the two of them were. "Oh no! It's the army of the immemorial heavenly demons." Mayujie's expression changed greatly. Without thinking, he took Juan to hide in a remote cave at the foot of the mountain peak. The moment the two of them hid in the cave, the rolling demonic chi descended and landed on the mountain peak where Juan and Mayujie were originally. The demonic chi dispersed and more than 10 figures landed on the open space on the mountain peak. These figures looked very similar to humans. The only difference was that their skin was pitch black and they were wearing ferocious black armor. Other than that, they had ferocious horns growing out of various parts of their bodies, such as their foreheads, elbows, knees, and so on. These figures were the army of primordial heavenly demons. Their leader was a female heavenly demon with a hot body. There was a small horn on her forehead that was a few inches long. It was sparkling and translucent, like a natural jade. Although this female heavenly demon's skin was also pitch black, her facial features were very delicate. She could be considered a beauty among the human race. The female extraterrestrial demon was clearly the leader of the team. The dozen or so male extraterrestrial demons, who were far more muscular than the female extraterrestrial demon, followed behind her timidly, not daring to be impudent. I clearly felt two unusual auras just now. Why did they disappear now? The female heavenly demon looked around the mountain range, and her scaly brows slowly furrowed. "Milord, just now, we sensed two auras that suddenly appeared here. Although those auras did not belong to us primordial heavenly demons, they did not seem to belong to primordial gods either. Their auras were very weak. Do you think we sensed wrongly?" A male extraterrestrial demon stepped forward and saluted the female extraterrestrial demon respectfully. "Are you doubting my senses?" The female extraterrestrial demon looked at the male extraterrestrial demon unkindly. "I dare not." The male extraterrestrial demon hurriedly knelt down, trembling as he begged for mercy. "Search the entire area once. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, find the two auras that I sensed." The female extraterrestrial demon said calmly. "Yes." The group of male heavenly demons bowed their heads and flew out. They began to search the surrounding mountains in an all-encompassing manner. Soon, only the female extraterrestrial demon with the voluptuous figure was left on the mountain peak. The female extraterrestrial demon's eyes narrowed slightly. Her immense divine sense spread out and began to search the entire mountain peak. Nothing? After searching the entire mountain peak, the female extraterrestrial demon frowned slightly. Just as she was about to withdraw her divine sense, her eyebrows suddenly twitched. Her divine sense stopped at a remote cave at the foot of the mountain. This cave was very ordinary. She had also sent her divine sense into the cave just now. She had carefully examined the cave, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. The position of the gravel at the entrance of the cave is a little different from the one before. The female extraterrestrial demon's divine sense landed at the entrance of the cave. There was a piece of gravel half the size of a palm on the ground, and a mysterious light burst out from the depths of her eyes. The female extraterrestrial demon leaped down slowly from the mountain peak and stopped at the entrance of the cave. Boom! The female extraterrestrial demon suddenly punched the entrance of the cave without warning. Colorful ripples suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave. It is indeed an array. No wonder it could escape my detection. It is a shielding array. The female extraterrestrial demon sneered and withdrew her right fist. The array at the entrance of the cave shattered into countless fine powder and disappeared without a trace. "I give you 3 breaths of time to get out. Otherwise, I don't mind tearing down this entire mountain peak." The female extraterrestrial demon's eyes flickered with scarlet light. She licked her lips and sneered. As soon as she finished speaking, 2 footsteps came from the cave. The female extraterrestrial demon looked up and was suddenly stunned. 2 figures walked out of the cave. Their bodies were surrounded by rolling primordial demon chi. 2 pairs of scarlet eyes were particularly glaring in the demon chi. People of the same race? The female extraterrestrial demon's eyes were filled with doubt. She looked at the 2 figures surrounded by demons with a look of disbelief. Previously, when she led a group of people to patrol this place, she sensed that the aura was obviously not the aura of the demon clan. Why did the aura change so much now? Could it be that she had sensed wrongly? "Greetings, my lord." The 2 figures surrounded by demon chi cupped their hands respectfully at the female extraterrestrial demon. "Why are the 2 of you here instead of searching for traces of the primordial god?" The female extraterrestrial demon frowned and asked. "My lord, we were searching for traces of the primordial god. Later on, we sensed an unusual aura here, so we entered this mountain peak to check it out." One of the figures surrounded by demon chi cupped his hands and said. The female extraterrestrial demon raised an eyebrow and said, "So you sensed it too? Did you find anything?" The 2 figures shook their heads. One of them said, "It's very strange. When we arrived here, the aura suddenly disappeared. It was as if it had disappeared into thin air. Hearing this, the female extraterrestrial demon frowned and muttered to herself, "Disappeared into thin air? That's strange. My lord, this mountain range is too big. We only searched here. Perhaps the aura is hiding in the other mountains. Please allow us to go to the other mountains to search." One of the figures suddenly said. The female extraterrestrial demon did not suspect him. She nodded and said, "Go ahead. Remember to inform me if you find it." The two figures answered solemnly. Then they turned into two streams of light and disappeared. The female extraterrestrial demon stood silently by the side of the cave. She suddenly noticed the broken array flag at the entrance of the cave. She picked up the array flag and looked at it carefully. Her pupils constricted and she said, "This was set up not long ago. In other words, not good." Chapter 4687. Men. The female heavenly demon suddenly bellowed. Instantly, several heavenly demons rushed over and knelt in front of her. "My lady, what's the matter?" The heavenly demons lowered their heads respectfully and asked the female heavenly demon, "Did you see those two figures shrouded in demonic fog just now?" The female heavenly demon asked with a dark gaze. "We saw them. They're heading towards the southern mountain, saying that they're searching that area on your orders." One of the heavenly demons lowered his head and said. The female heavenly demon looked towards the southern mountain range, and her face darkened. She stomped her right foot and dashed towards the southern mountain range. After a while, the female heavenly demon returned. However, the scarlet glow in her eyes was getting more and more intense. Frustration and anger filled her eyes. "Bastard! There's something wrong with those two fellows. How could you let them go just like that?" The female heavenly demon roared furiously at the heavenly demons in front of her, causing them to kneel and tremble in fear. "My lady! The demonic aura on those two fellows was clearly very pure primordial demonic chi. How could there be a problem?" One of the heavenly demons knelt on the ground and asked doubtfully. However, just as the heavenly demon finished speaking, he was sent flying by a slap from the female heavenly demon. "Are you doubting me?" The female heavenly demon stared coldly at the heavenly demon who was sent flying and asked eerily. "I wouldn't dare." The heavenly demon hurriedly got up and kowtowed repeatedly on the ground. "There's a formation set up in this cave, and it was just set up not long ago. We heavenly demons don't have the talent to set up formations and refine medicine. Only the primordial gods know these unorthodox methods. Therefore, there's definitely something wrong with those two fellows, and it's a huge problem." The female heavenly demon explained with a dark gaze. "My lady, are you trying to say that those two fellows are primordial gods? Didn't you say that the primordial gods have long holed up in the 7 constellations starfield in the north? This is the 7 constellations starfield in the south. How could they appear here?" "That's right. Our primordial heavenly demon army has occupied the 7 constellations starfield in the south for so many years. It's impossible for primordial gods to sneak in, right? Even if primordial gods come here, they'll definitely die." Several heavenly demons discussed among themselves, finding it unbelievable. The 7 constellations in the south had been occupied by the heavenly demons for so many years. It was an impregnable fortress. It was impossible for anyone to sneak in. The female heavenly demon frowned. She was also puzzled. If they were primordial gods, how could those two figures have such pure primordial demonic chi? Moreover, she felt that the devil chi was purer and more advanced than hers, which made her feel a little apprehensive. If it wasn't for the fact that the devil chi of the two figures was too thin, she would have thought that they were heavenly devils of a higher level. "My lord, could he be a deserter?" After all, the war between the north and the south was imminent. Deserters had appeared in many legions. Those two fellows are sneaking around. They might have escaped from the army. Suddenly, a sky fiend filled in the blanks. What he said immediately received the approval of the other sky fiends. The female sky fiend was also a little shaken. She looked at the array flag in her hand and wondered if the two fellows had found it in the cave and had just activated the array formation. So she had misunderstood those two guys? If they're deserters from the army, then all the more reason to capture them and execute them according to military law. The female sky fiend snorted. The other sky fiends were submissive, not daring to refute the female sky fiend. Next, the female sky fiend's team searched the mountain range again. After finding no traces, they left reluctantly. After the female sky fiend left, on an inconspicuous ridge in the southern mountain range, droplets of invisible water slowly seeped out and formed a human figure. This human figure was none other than Zhuan. After deceiving the female sky fiend, Yuan and Ma Yujie rushed over. Before the sky fiend noticed, they turned into invisible water and merged into the ridge. Although the secret technique invisible water escape was not of a very high level, Yuan had improved it over the years and merged it with the primordial technique. In fact, it had already become a part of the primordial technique. Now, Zhuo Wen's formless water escape could even deceive the primordial sky fiend. This made Zhuo Wen pleasantly surprised. "Brother Ma, come out." With a wave of his sleeve, Yuan released Ma Yujie from the great world. "Are they sure they left?" Ma Yujie was still a little scared and kept looking ahead. "They left." Zhuo Wen nodded. Ma Yujie heaved a sigh of relief and said sadly, "Looks like the 7 constellations starfield in the south has been completely occupied by the sky fiends. The entire 7 constellations starfield in the south is extremely vast. If this place is occupied by the sky fiends, even if we hide here and there, we will be discovered one day." Zhuo Wen's eyes flickered and he suddenly said, "Brother Ma, I have an idea. Will it work?" "What is it?" Ma Yujie hurriedly asked. "We infiltrate the primordial sky fiend army. Then we gather the relevant information," Zhuo Wen said in a low voice. Ma Yujie's pupils shrank and he couldn't help but shout, "I say, are you crazy? Infiltrating the primordial sky fiend army, isn't that courting death?" Zhuo Wen's expression was calm and he didn't speak. Instead, he slowly withdrew the demonic aura around him. His skin turned black, and a few feet-long black horn grew on his forehead. Blazing primordial demonic chi continuously surged out from his body. His scarlet eyes seemed to carry an endless demonic aura, making one's hair stand on end. I have never seen a primordial sky fiend before, so I couldn't imitate it. Now that I have, and I have absorbed the real primordial demonic chi, my disguise as a primordial sky fiend is basically flawless. Zhuo Wen's scarlet eyes stared at Ma Yujie as he said calmly. Ma Yujie felt goosebumps all over his body when he felt those scarlet eyes that were filled with violence. A chill ran up his spine. At this moment, the feeling that Zhuo Wen gave him was no less than that of the sky fiends he had seen before. In fact, the demonic aura emitted from his body was even more terrifying. "Are you sure you won't be exposed?" Ma Yujie was still worried. "You don't trust me, but don't you trust the primordial technique?" Zhuo Wen said calmly. The primordial technique was definitely a technique that stole the fortune of heaven and earth. In terms of imitating one's aura, it was almost 100% accurate, and there had never been a mistake. Ma Yujie nodded and tried to circulate the primordial technique. Demonic chi enveloped his body, and his skin turned black, and several hard black horns grew on his body. However, Ma Yujie's body was still like a ball, and his body was completely the same horizontally and vertically. He looked more like a comical sky fiend. "Brother Zhuo, what do you think of me like this?" Ma Yujie walked over and circled in front of Zhuo Wen, his chubby fat jiggling. "You better forget it? You're too fat." Zhuo Wen shook his head. Ma Yujie was speechless. Chapter 4688. Under Zhuo Wen's teasing several times, Ma Yujie finally gave up on disguising as a heavenly demon. Just as Zhuo Wen said, heavenly demons were all as strong as oxen, and few were as fat as a ball like Ma Yujie. If Ma Yujie really disguised as a heavenly demon with his body, the only possibility was to be captured and interrogated. Helpless, Ma Yujie could only give up the idea of disguising and hide in Zhuo Wen's big world in a daze. Of course, even if Ma Yujie was in the big world, he still kept in contact with Zhuo Wen at all times. After all, Yuan was not familiar with the immemorial star system, so he naturally needed Ma Yujie to guide him. The closest place to this mountain range should be Burning Heaven's Star City. Let's go there first. If the star orbit of this city can still be used, we can use the star orbit to quickly shuttle to the other cities in the star field. Ma Yujie's voice sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Star orbit? What's that? Zhuowen asked in surprise. In the immemorial star system, the so-called star orbit's function is similar to the teleportation array in your chaotic starry sky. However, the teleportation distance of the star orbit is much further than the teleportation array, and it is activated with the help of the power of the stars. Ma Yujie explained and continued, Brother Zhuo, it's about time to go. Hearing this, Zhuo nodded. After Ma Yujie pointed in a direction, he turned into a stream of light and quickly rushed over. Burning Heaven Star City was a rather famous giant city among the cities in the southern 7 constellations starfield. The cities in the immemorial star system were very different from the cities in the 100 domains outside the realm. The territory of Star City was so vast that it was comparable to a realm in the 100 domains outside the realm. It could be seen how huge Star City was. When Zhuowen arrived at Burning Heaven Star City, he was completely shocked by the grandeur of this star city. Burning Heaven Star City was a huge city formed by countless palaces. Moreover, this huge city was not standing on the ground, but suspended thousands of miles high in the sky. At the bottom of Star City, small stars supported the entire Star City, exuding an eternal radiance. According to Ma Yujie's description, the sky of the Burning Heaven Star City was covered with endless heavenly flames all year round. Zhuowen looked up and indeed saw the flames in the sky of the Burning Heaven Star City. However, these flames were not golden like Ma Yujie had said, but black with surging demonic might. It wasn't just the flames in the sky. The entire Star City was filled with surging demonic chi, emitting a heart-palpitating demonic might. Sigh. It seemed that the female heavenly demon was right. The 7 constellations in the south had indeed been taken over by the heavenly demon army. This Burning Heaven Star City has actually been transformed into a demon city. It's really lamentable. Ma Yujie's sorrowful voice slowly sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Brother Ma, there's no need to be so depressed. The primordial gods haven't been completely defeated. Otherwise, the heavenly devils would have rushed out of the primordial star system and invaded the primordial star system. Zhuowen secretly consoled him. Brother Zhuo is right. We'll have to rely on Brother Zhuo to gather information. Ma Yujie sighed softly. Zhuowen nodded. Looking at the star city suspended in the sky, he stepped on the ground and flew up, landing at the Star City's city gate. The Star City's city gate was extremely huge, as if it connected heaven and earth. On both sides of the city gate, there were dozens of heavenly devils inspecting the numerous heavenly devils entering and leaving. Zhuowen looked around and realized that the number of heavenly devils entering and leaving the city was really not small. There were strong and weak heavenly devils, old and young, and not all of them were demonic soldiers of the army. Most of them were rogue cultivators and commoners. This was very similar to the human race. After all, although heavenly devils were powerful and terrifying, there were naturally strong and weak heavenly devils, and they also possessed high intelligence. The learning ability of these heavenly devils is really strong. Back then, before I fell, heavenly devils were simply barbaric existences. They didn't even know how to make clothes, jewelry, and so on. Only their innate strength was extremely terrifying and destructive. Now, these heavenly devils are actually like the primordial gods in the human race, becoming so orderly and developing a pretty good civilization. Ma Yujie's surprised voice slowly sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Look, Burning Heaven Star City actually has a large array. Didn't you say that Magatama was unable to set up arrays, refine pills, or refine weapons? Zhuowen suddenly stopped and looked around Star City. He keenly sensed that there were extremely powerful array fluctuations around Star City. That's right. It's so strange. Before the primordial gods withdrew from Star City, they would definitely destroy the large array, weapons, and so on. Why are there still fluctuations of a large array in Burning Heaven Star City? Ma Yujie was also rather puzzled. Let's enter the city first. Zhuan shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He stepped towards the city gate. The moment he reached the city gate, several heavenly devils immediately blocked Zhuowen's path. Routine inspection. A heavenly devil glanced at Zhuowen indifferently. His huge divine sense swept over Zhuowen, and his heart was filled with doubts. Although Zhuowen's body was surging with devil qi, his aura was very weak, even weaker than an ordinary heavenly devil. It was as if he was a newborn heavenly devil. However, this guy in front of him was obviously an adult heavenly devil. How could he be a baby heavenly devil? Zhuowen frowned slightly. He discovered that a heavenly devil who was inspecting him was planning to drill into his sea of consciousness with his terrifying divine sense. Zhuowen coldly snorted and immediately opened the limitless devil book, releasing all the devil qi he had absorbed from the primordial devil seed. At this moment, the devil infant who was bound in the devil domain opened his eyes. A terrifying demonic aura surged out and filled the entire city gate. Plop, plop. The heavenly devil who was inspecting him and the other heavenly devils at the city gate were all shocked by this devil power and knelt on the ground, trembling. Zhuowen's aura was still not strong, but the devil power emitted from his body was extremely terrifying. It was the suppression of a superior heavenly devil on an inferior Magatama. My lord, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have searched your soul. The heavenly devil who was inspecting Zhuowen's sea of consciousness was so frightened that he prostrated himself on the ground, breaking out in cold sweat. Zhuowen stood silently on the spot, also breaking out in cold sweat. This was because the devil infant in the devil domain was actually trying to break free from his restraints. Even he was afraid of the devil power. Just as Zhuowen was about to lose control of the devil infant, the four primordial stones in the depths of his sea of consciousness released a powerful and mysterious purple glow. A purple ray of light shot out and touched the devil infant's forehead. Immediately, countless purple light patterns appeared on the surface of the devil infant's body, suppressing the countless scarlet demon patterns on the surface of the devil infant's body. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhuowen immediately closed the devil domain, and the terrifying devil power finally dissipated. Zhuowen looked around and realized that many heavenly devils were prostrating on the ground, not daring to raise their heads to look at Zhuowen. He was stunned for a moment before he understood something. My lord, please spare our lives. My lord, please spare our lives. The many heavenly devils prostrated on the ground and begged Zhuowen for mercy. Brother Zhua, it seems that the devil infant that we are restraining in the Master God domain is not simple. Heavenly devils are more particular about hierarchy than humans and primordial gods. A high-class heavenly devil has the absolute right to kill a low-class heavenly devil. While Zhuowen was in a daze, Ma Yujie's surprised voice sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Zhuowen nodded. Just as he was about to get these heavenly devils to stand up, he suddenly realized that his current identity was a high-class heavenly devil. And heavenly devils were cruel by nature. How could they have a merciful heart? Since you know your mistake, then you can kill yourself. Zhuowen looked down at the heavenly devil who wanted to search his soul. His eyes exuded a ruthless scarlet color as he spoke indifferently. Chapter 4689. Spare my life. My lord. The heavenly demon kneeling in front of Zhuowen was so scared that his face turned pale. He kept kowtowing to Zhuowen, begging for mercy. His head was bleeding from the kowtow. If you don't kill yourself, do you want me to do it myself? Zhuowen's voice was low, and his scarlet eyes emitted a terrifying light as he said indifferently. The heavenly demon guard's heart was like dead ashes. He crossed his hands and smashed them between his eyebrows. Splat! The heavenly demon guard's head exploded, and his headless corpse fell to the side. The other heavenly demons knelt on the ground, trembling in fear, not daring to say a word. I'm not an unreasonable person. This heavenly demon offended me just now, so I only killed him. Do you accept this? Zhuowen said calmly. The heavenly demons kneeling at the city gate hurriedly kowtowed. Who dared to not accept this? This person in front of them did not seem to have a strong aura, but the demonic aura that suddenly erupted completely suppressed them. This was definitely a high-grade heavenly demon. Although there were countless heavenly demons in the ancient star system, there were not many high-grade heavenly demons. Each of them was a high-ranking official of a territory, like a general or commander of a large territory. Even if such an existence killed them all, they would not dare to complain. Zhuan ignored these trembling heavenly demons and walked toward the city gate. After Zhuan entered the city, many heavenly demons outside the city heaved a sigh of relief and stood up in fear. Among the guards at the city gate, several heavenly demon guards looked at each other and immediately went into the city. They planned to report what happened at the city gate to the city lord. The arrival of a high-grade heavenly demon was definitely a big matter. If they did not receive him well, their entire city would be in danger of being destroyed. Not long after Zhuan stepped into the city, a skinny heavenly demon carefully followed behind Zhuan. He seemed to be afraid of being discovered by Zhuan, so he tiptoed and followed from afar, not daring to get close at all. Little did he know that he had already been discovered by Zhuan. What is it? Zhuan turned around and looked straight at the thin sky fiend behind him. He realized that this heavenly demon's aura was much weaker than most adult heavenly demons. Judging from its size, it should still be underage. The scrawny heavenly demon was so frightened that he couldn't help but take a few steps back. Then, he hurriedly knelt on the ground and kowtowed. "Please forgive me, my lord. This lowly one saw that your excellency wasn't too familiar with Burning Heaven Star City, so you want to show me the way?" Zhuan asked calmly. "Yes. This lowly one is willing to serve my lord with all his heart and soul." The skinny heavenly demon kowtowed a few more times, but he did not dare to raise his head to look at Zhuan. Zhuan was silent for a moment. He looked at the skinny heavenly devil and said, "Sure. This is indeed the first time I've come to Burning Heaven Star City. I'll have to trouble you later." The skinny heavenly demon was overjoyed. After thanking Zhuan again, he got up and led the way for Zhuan. After chatting for a while, Zhuan learned that this skinny heavenly demon was called Mo Suji. He was an insignificant ordinary heavenly demon in Burning Heaven Star City. He could not even be considered a low-grade heavenly demon. These ordinary heavenly demons were the lowest of the heavenly demons and were only fit to do odd jobs. Their status was not much better than that of human slaves. Those low-level and mid-level heavenly demons could slaughter these ordinary heavenly demons who had no strength to even truss a chicken. When Mo Suji saw the scene of many heavenly demons kneeling and kowtowing to Zhuan, he knew that the time to change his fate had come. So, he mustered up his courage and followed Zhuan, intending to be Zhuan's guide. Zhuan sighed in his heart, thinking that the world of heavenly demons was really much crueler than that of the human world. The law of the jungle was vividly reflected in this place. It was extremely bloody and naked. If not for the fact that Mo Suji was Zhuan, he might have been killed on the spot for rashly recommending himself. At the same time, Zhuan also learned from Mo Suji that all heavenly demons had the word demon in their names. Zhuan thought for a while and decided to use the pseudonym Mo Wen. This name was very compatible with the name of heavenly demons. Perhaps because Mo Suji had hooked up with a high-grade heavenly demon like Zhuan, he was very excited. Along the way, he introduced the detailed geography of Burning Heaven Star City to Zhuan, including how many inner cities there were, how many forces there were, how many important figures were there, and so on. It could be said that Mo Suji racked his brains, trying to tell Zhuan everything he knew in order to curry favor with Zhuan. "You said that there are no high-grade heavenly demons in Burning Heaven Star City?" Zhuan stopped and could not help but look at Mo Suji and ask. Mo Suji nodded seriously and said, "Yes. What kind of existence is a high-grade heavenly demon? They are all existences similar to feudal officials. The most powerful person in Burning Heaven Star City is the city lord, but he is only a mid-grade heavenly demon." At this point, Mo Suji glanced at Zhuan and said, "Even the Lord City Lord is far inferior when compared to you." Zhuan did not answer Mo Suji's words, but said indifferently, "Let's find an inn first." Mo Suji smiled embarrassedly and hurriedly led Zhuan to the nearest inn. Not far from the inn. Suddenly, a commotion attracted Zhuan's attention. Not far ahead, there was a large shop. At this moment, many heavenly demons had gathered at the entrance of the shop, pointing and whispering. Zhuan looked through the gaps in the crowd and vaguely saw a burly heavenly demon holding a whip full of barbs, ruthlessly whipping a petite figure. What surprised Zhuan was that the petite figure was not a heavenly demon, but a little human girl. This little girl was covered in dust and her clothes were tattered. At a glance, she looked like a little beggar. At this moment, the little girl was curled up and hugging her body, helplessly dodging the whips. Every time the whip came, it would leave a deep bloody mark on the little girl's body. What surprised Zhuan was that the little girl's blood was not bright red, but shimmering with golden light. It looked like it was plated with gold and looked very dazzling. Zhuan frowned slightly. He did not expect to meet a human in a heavenly demon city. Mo Su-ji saw Zhuan stop and look at the scene in the shop and sighed softly. That's the owner of the weapon shop, whipping his slave in public again. From Mo Su-ji's tone, one could tell that this was not the first time the heavenly demon of the weapon shop whipped the little girl. Zhuan's eyes flickered, but he did not ask any questions. Instead, he walked towards the shop. He knew nothing about the heavenly demons. Although Mo Su-ji was here, he could not ask some common questions. Otherwise, it would be easy for him to be suspected. Therefore, Yuan did not ask about the little girl's identity. He planned to save this little girl and find out more about the ancient star system from her. Sir, Mo Su-ji saw Zhuan walking away and his face was filled with shock. He quickly followed after him. When Zhuan approached the shop, the surrounding heavenly demons immediately opened up a path. Many heavenly demons bowed respectfully to Zhuan. Many of the heavenly demons here were from the city gate. They had all felt the terrifying demonic aura released by Zhuan and knew that Zhuan was a superior heavenly demon, so they did not dare to be disrespectful. Chapter 4690. Memorize 69 books in 1 second. No pop-up windows, free to read. For you. The heavenly demon who was whipping the little girl naturally felt that the atmosphere was not right. He raised his head and saw Zhuan walking over. He frowned and asked. Zhuan said calmly, I've taken a liking to this little girl. Leave it to me. The heavenly demon of the weapon shop flew into a rage and said coldly, Give it to you? This is my slave. If you don't want to die, why don't you scram? With that, the heavenly demon suddenly erupted with a terrifying demonic aura that instantly spread to the surroundings, scaring many of the surrounding heavenly demons into retreating. Zhuan stood still like a mountain, but his entire body was covered in cold sweat. The heavenly demon of the weapon shop was stronger than the guard. When the demonic aura was released, it almost made him collapse to the ground. Fortunately, he had the protection of the primordial stone, preventing him from making a fool of himself. How dare you? This is Lord Mo Wen, a superior heavenly demon. How dare you offend Lord Mo Wen? Mo Su-ji stood at the back, full of confidence. He straightened his back and shouted at the weapon shop owner. The weapon shop owner was a famous bully in this area. He had worked here as a temporary worker and had been whipped and bullied by the former. Now, the superior heavenly demon in his eyes had taken the initiative to come here. He knew that the weapon shop owner would definitely be at a disadvantage, and even his life would be in danger. Mo Su-ji, a lowly ordinary heavenly demon like you, is here too. You say this guy is a superior heavenly demon? I'm going to laugh my head off. The weapon shop owner glanced at Zhuan in disdain and continued, This aura is so weak. If he's a superior heavenly demon, then I'm the great demon king. I really don't know what I'm talking about. He really is a superior heavenly demon, be careful with your words. You're courting death. How dare you say that about a superior heavenly demon? Many of the surrounding heavenly demons were discussing and reminding the weapon shop owner. Seeing the discussion around him, the weapon shop owner was a little scared. However, his pride was very strong and he still refused to admit it. Zhuan's aura was just too weak. It was even weaker than an ordinary heavenly demon. How could he be a superior heavenly demon? Hand her over to me. Zhuan's face was expressionless. Although his voice was very soft, it was already filled with thick killing intent. At the same time, he activated the limitless devil tome again and opened the devil domain, planning to borrow the demonic might of the demonic infant. However, he was shocked to find that the demonic infant was lying in the demonic domain, calmly looking at him. There was even a human-like mocking smile on its face. This guy should be mocking me, right? Juan looked at demonic neonate and knew that she definitely didn't intend to cooperate. He glanced at the surface of the demon infant's body and discovered that the scarlet demonic patterns on its skin had been completely suppressed by the power of the primordial stone. He was completely relieved. His spirit transformed into a wisp and entered the demonic domain, revealing his own appearance. The demonic infant looked at Juan and laughed mockingly. He was already intelligent, so he could naturally see that Juan wanted to borrow his demonic might, but he refused to cooperate. Little guy, seeing how uncooperative you are, I'm very gratified. Juan smiled slightly, raised his hand, and slapped the demonic infant mercilessly. The crisp sound of the slap was so loud in the demonic domain. The demonic infant flew dozens of meters back, staring at Juan in a daze with his pitch-black eyes. He clearly didn't expect that this lowly human cultivator in front of him would actually dare to hit him. Although this human cultivator's slap didn't hurt him at all, it was already a great humiliation to him. See if I don't beat you to death today. Juan didn't give the demonic infant a chance to react at all. He suddenly jumped out and kicked the demonic infant's face, using all his strength every time. In the end, he used both his hands and feet, slapping the demonic infant's face with every move. After being dumbfounded for a while, the demonic infant was completely enraged and let out a shocking roar. Terrifying demonic might soared into the sky, and the entire demonic domain rumbled as if it was about to collapse. When Juan saw this, he revealed a gratified smile. Then, his spirit quickly escaped from the demonic domain. Running away after slapping the face? How exciting! The demonic infant let out an earth-shattering roar that resounded throughout the demonic domain. Terrifying demonic might surged out from Juan's body like a monstrous tsunami. The moment this demonic might appeared, all the heavenly demons present knelt on the ground in fear, trembling with pale faces. The weapon store owner's face stiffened. He was so scared that he knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Jin, begging for mercy. Sir, please forgive me, this lowly one has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. The weapon store owner finally believed Emo Shuji's words. The person in front of him was indeed a superior heavenly demon. This demonic might was simply too terrifying. It was even more terrifying than the city lord of Burning Heaven Star City. Juan ignored the weapon store owner. His gaze fell on the little girl who was curled up on the ground and trembling. Come here. Juan ordered the little girl. The little girl raised her head with difficulty, revealing a delicate and cute face. A pair of big eyes looked pitifully at Juan, filled with fear. Only then did Juan realize that the demonic might on his body had yet to dissipate. He hurriedly communicated with the primordial stone and closed the demonic domain. When the demonic might on Juan's body dissipated, many of the heavenly demons present heaved a sigh of relief. They looked at Juan with even more reverence and fear in their eyes. Come here. Juan spoke again, his tone becoming impatient. The little girl was so frightened that she hurriedly stood up and limped to Juan's side. She lowered her head and tears flowed down her cheeks like pearls. However, she did not dare to wipe them away. She was afraid that the superior heavenly demon beside her would kill her out of anger. Although the weapon store owner often beat and scolded her, at least she was still alive. However, the heavenly demon in front of her was too powerful and temperamental. The little girl was extremely nervous. I really didn't expect that my little Burning Heaven Star City would be fortunate enough to welcome a superior heavenly demon. Suddenly, a hearty laugh came from the front, attracting the attention of many heavenly demons present. Juan looked in the direction of the voice and discovered that an elite heavenly demon army had appeared at the end of the street. The leader was burly and wore a sinister black armor. He was riding a demonic colt that was surrounded by demonic chi. He was looking at Juan. Greetings, City Lord. Greetings, City Lord. When the heavenly demon's presence saw the heavenly demon army and the heavenly demon riding a demonic colt in front, they all knelt on the ground and shouted in unison. Zhuan did not move. He stood on the spot and silently looked at the heavenly demon city lord. The heavenly demon city lord laughed and slowly walked over with the heavenly demon army. He only dismounted when he was not far away from Zhuan and came forward to welcome him. I am the city lord of Burning Heaven Star City, Mo Yongcheng. Greetings, superior heavenly demon. Mo Yongcheng came in front of Zhuan and cupped his hands to Zhuan. Zhuan looked at Mo Yongcheng silently, his heart sinking. The aura that Mo Yongcheng faintly emitted was too terrifying. It was far stronger than all the heavenly demons he had seen so far. Is this the power of a mid-level heavenly demon? Zhuan thought to himself. If you want to talk about Divine Soul Supreme with more like-minded people, follow excellent reading literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find confidence. Chapter 4691. Although Zhuan was shocked by the terrifying demonic aura on Mo Yongcheng's body, he remained calm and composed on the surface and appeared indifferent. So you're the city lord of this city? Why are you looking for me? Zhuan's voice was low, and one could not tell if he was happy or angry. He gave off an unfathomable feeling. Mo Yongcheng's heart trembled, but he still lowered his head and said respectfully, Lord Superior Heavenly Demon has arrived. This lowly one will naturally welcome you personally. Please come to my residence and let this lowly one entertain you personally. Zhuan's expression was indifferent as he said, No need. I'll find a place to stay myself. There's no need to trouble you, City Lord. Mo Yongcheng was a little disappointed when he heard that, but he did not dare to refute. A superior heavenly demon was not someone he could disobey. Since the other party said that he did not need it, he naturally did not dare to force it. Is there anything else? Zhuan saw that Mo Yongcheng was still standing in front of him and said impatiently, Nothing. Mo Yongcheng hurriedly retreated, his forehead full of cold sweat. Zhuan did not even look at Mo Yongcheng. He picked up the little girl with one hand and left. The moment he left the city lord's army, Zhuan faintly glanced at a female heavenly demon at the front of the team, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He knew this female heavenly demon. It was the female heavenly demon who had come to search for him and Ma Yujie when they had just arrived in the primordial star system. He did not expect that female heavenly demon to be from Burning Heaven Star City. My lord! Wait for me! Mo Suji hurriedly followed after him, his eyes filled with boundless admiration. City lord! Is this really a superior heavenly demon? After Zhuan left, the female heavenly demon approached and whispered to Mo Yongcheng. It was not that the female heavenly demon doubted Zhuan, but that Zhuan's aura was too weak without releasing his demonic aura. It was not that she had never seen a superior heavenly demon before. Which superior heavenly demon did not have a monstrous aura, as deep as the sea, causing people to be terrified. However, this so-called superior heavenly demon in front of her paled in comparison. Mo Yongcheng said in a low voice, It should be true. Just now, the demonic power he released far exceeded ours. Other than a superior heavenly devil, who else could possess such terrifying demonic power? The female heavenly demon fell silent when she heard that. Thinking back to the demonic might that Zhuan had released earlier, she felt a sense of lingering fear. Since this sir has come to my Burning Heaven Star City, then we can't be negligent. Do you understand? Mo Yongcheng said in a low voice. The female sky fiend hurriedly bowed and said, Don't worry, my lord. This subordinate will not dare to be negligent. Mo Yongcheng nodded. Then he left with the soldiers of the city governor's estate. Zhuan found an inn not far away and stayed there. What made Zhuan feel awkward was that he had no money on him. The coins used by heavenly devils were completely different from those used by human cultivators. Heavenly devils called them devil coins. Zhuan's identity as a superior heavenly devil was originally a disguise. Moreover, it was his first time in the ancient star system. How could he have devil coins on him? However, the moment Zhuan stepped into the inn, The innkeeper and the surrounding heavenly devil customers all knelt in front of Juan. Superior heavenly devil has come. This lowly one is in fear and trepidation. The innkeeper was a short heavenly devil. He hurriedly walked forward and knelt in front of Juan. Behind the innkeeper were the waiters, accountants, and other servants. Beside them was a group of customers. Juan was stunned. Then he understood that the innkeeper and the others must have seen what happened at the weapon store. "I'm here to stay. How much is it for a night?" Juan said coldly. "My lord, you're too kind. What kind of status do you have? To be able to stay in my inn is an honor to me. Why would you need money?" The innkeeper lowered his posture and showed a flattering smile to Juan. The corners of Juan's mouth curled up slightly. His expression was still cold as he said, "In that case, arrange a good room for me. I need 2 rooms. I'll arrange it right away. My lord, please follow me." The innkeeper hurriedly agreed and got up to make an inviting gesture to Juan. Juan nodded. He carried the little girl and slowly followed the innkeeper. The little girl was obedient. She did not say a word. Her head drooped as if she had accepted her fate. However, tears flowed down her cheeks like beads. As she was afraid of angering Juan, she did not dare to cry out loud. She could only cry silently. "My lord, these 2 rooms are the best rooms in our inn. Here are the keys." The innkeeper took out 2 keys and handed them to Juan. He asked, "My lord, do you have any other orders?" "You may leave," Juan said calmly. But the innkeeper nodded and slowly retreated. Juan threw a key to Emo Suji and said, "You can stay in the other room. If there's anything, just come to my room to find me." Emo Suji received the key and respectfully kowtowed to Juan before slowly retreating. Juan opened the door and walked in. He found that the room was quite spacious and the decorations were also very elegant. What made him even more surprised was that the demonic chi in the room was much denser than the outside world. Clearly, it was beneficial to the cultivation of heavenly demons. Juan put down the little girl. With a wave of his sleeve, he formed runes and shielded the entire room. After doing all this, Juan sat on his seat and silently looked at the little girl in front of him. The little girl saw Juan looking over and quickly wiped the tears from her face. She lowered her head and clasped her hands together. Her little body was trembling nonstop. "Tell me about your background," Juan suddenly asked. "I'm a native of Burning Heaven Star City. When Burning Heaven Star City was breached, my parents and I did not have time to escape. We were captured alive by the heavenly demons and became slaves." The little girl said timidly, "So, you're not a human cultivator but an immemorial god?" Juan slowly narrowed his eyes as he recalled that the little girl's blood wasn't bright red, but a brilliant golden color. From this point of view, the possibility of the little girl being a human cultivator was not high. Moreover, the little girl's aura was not weak. In the chaotic starry sky, she could be considered a very powerful expert. But in the immemorial star system, she was just a weak child. "Yes, sir, there are very few human cultivators in the immemorial star system. When the immemorial star system was at its peak, there were also a few human cultivators who ascended to the immemorial star system. But ever since the heavenly demons invaded the immemorial star system, the immemorial star system was completely sealed off from the chaotic starry sky. No human cultivators were able to ascend." The little girl's voice was very clear, like the cry of an oriole. Mu Feng nodded. No wonder there were many ancient books in the 100 outer domains that recorded examples of human cultivators ascending to the immemorial star system a long time ago. However, that was a long time ago. Juan nodded and looked at the little girl. "Then do you know where the immemorial god has retreated to?" As soon as these words came out, the little girl's pretty face changed slightly. Her eyes flickered and she whispered, "I don't know," Juan said indifferently. Chapter 4692. And /and no, Zonghan, don't blame elder sister. Shen Xin shook her head and was about to walk out. "I can't stay. Qin Hai won't let me off. I can't cause trouble for you and elder sister." Alt, R slash and he and Alt slash and he. Her face was pale and her thin and weak body trembled. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. The current Shin Xingyue's terrified and helpless appearance overlapped with the expression she had back then. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. Xiao Zonghan's face immediately darkened. You stay, he said in a commanding tone. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and IGT. Because the Shin Xingyue in his memory was most afraid of this tone of voice, slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. Sure enough, when she saw his icy expression, Shin Xingyue no longer mentioned leaving, although she still hesitated. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. Xiao Zonghan quickly ordered people to prepare a room for Shin Xingyue. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. It was large and comfortable. Seeing Shin Xingyue's appearance of not daring to touch it, Xiao Zonghan's heart slightly couldn't bear it. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. His large hand rubbed her hair. Be good, you stay here. Don't worry, I will definitely protect you in the future. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. Shin Xingyue's shoulders trembled slightly. Alt, R slash and E and Alt slash and. After a long while, she suddenly sobbed in a weak voice. Zonghan, I'm so afraid that all of this is a dream. Forward slash and E and Alt slash and E. Her slender arms wrapped around his waist. Xiao Zonghan's figure paused, but in the end he did not push her away. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and E. The night was dark. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. Shin Xingyue's face was buried in front of Xiao Zonghan, as if she was wiping her tears, and her arms tightened. Slash and AGT and Alt slash and AG. Young commander. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AG. At this moment, an untimely male voice sounded. Young madam is missing. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. Young madam? Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. Hearing this title, Shin Xingyue's eyes flashed. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. However, Xiao Zonghan's attention was focused on the last three words. Disappeared? Where could she have gone? Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. Xiao Zonghan pushed Shin Xingyue's body away, stood up, and strode out. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and T. Zonghan. A timid female voice sounded. Xiao Zonghan turned around and saw Shin Xingyue's teary eyes. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AG. Don't be afraid. You can stay here at ease. I will definitely protect you. He promised as he closed the door and left. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. As soon as the door closed, the smile on the man's face suddenly disappeared. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AG. The icy night wind blew on Xiao Zonghan's body. Alt, R slash and E and Alt slash and E caused his heart to quickly freeze and harden. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. That woman, she's actually gone? Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AG. Once she heard that Shin Xingyue had returned, she ran away in fear? Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. When he thought of the scars on Shin Xingyue's body, he couldn't help but clench his fists. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. Blue veins bulged on his sturdy arms. Xiao Zonghan's expression became more and more unsightly, and his steps became larger and larger. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. At the age of 7, he became a peripheral member of the Shin family and gathered information for Xinqinghe. Slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. At the age of 17, he had already obtained information for Xinqinghe countless times and escaped death countless times. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. He didn't owe Xinqinghe anything, but Xinqinghe's daughter had truly destroyed his lover. Alt, R slash and AGT and Alt slash and AGT. With the same background and similar appearance, Shinxin had been the moon surrounded by stars since she was young, but what about Xingyue? She wore Shinxin's discarded old clothes and ate cold food. She lived humbly and carefully in that courtyard. Alt, and AGT and Alt and A. In the end, she was still schemed against by that woman. Alt and AGT and Alt and A. Young heart was unable to understand love, but it could distinguish between hatred and hatred. Alt and AGT and Alt and AGT, he clearly remembered that day. It was the Mid-Autumn Festival. Shen Xingyue was lying under Qin Hai's body with her clothes barely covering her body. Qin Hai's face and Shen Xingyue's tears had replayed in his mind over and over again over the years. Alt and AGT and Alt and AGT hated Shenxin. Alt and AGT and Alt and AE from that day onwards. 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. Alt and AGT and Alt and AGT never stopped. Alt and AGT and Alt and AE. He wanted Shenxin to atone for his Xingyue for the rest of her life. Alt and AGT and Alt and AE. With a bang, the door to the side room was kicked open by the man. Alt and AGT and Alt and AE. In the empty and dark room, it was so quiet that there was not a trace of life. Alt and AGT and Alt and AE. Sure enough, the person had disappeared. Alt and AGT and Alt and AE. Xiao Zonghan stood at the door, his dark eyes sweeping over the people kneeling in front of him. Still not looking? Alt and AGT and Alt and AG. Your subordinates will go and look for it. Alt and AGT and Alt and AE. For a time, the young marshal's residence was brightly lit. Alt and AGT and Alt and AGT. Time passed by, minute by minute. Alt and AGT and Alt and AE. The moon was high in the sky. The housekeeper bowed in front of Xiao Zonghan, not daring to make a sound. Alt and AE and Alt and AE. Young marshal no. Alt and AE and Alt and AE. Young marshal no. Alt and AGT and Alt and AG and Alt and AGT and Alt and AGT. Following the repeated reports of failure, the man's brows furrowed deeper and deeper. Alt and AGT and Alt and AGT. Shen Xingyue actually dared to escape. Alt and AGT and Alt and daring to escape from under his nose. Alt and AE and Alt and AE. His fingers clenched, and the porcelain cup made a slight cracking sound. The man's lips curled into a cruel arc. Find her. Even if she's dead, drag her body over to this marshal. Even if she was dead, he would make her apologize to Xingyue. Alt and AGT and Alt and AGT and Alt and AGT. Chapter 4693. But with your current identity, you can't join the army. Ma Yujie looked at Zhuan from head to toe and shook his head. Zhuan smiled bitterly and nodded. His starting point was too high, disguising himself as a superior heavenly demon the moment he arrived. With the identity and status of a superior heavenly demon, why would he stupidly go to the city lord's mansion to sign up for the army? It was easy to arouse suspicion. Only if you remove your identity as a superior heavenly demon and join the army as an ordinary heavenly demon can you successfully enter the army. Ma Yujie said in a deep voice. Zhuan nodded in agreement. He would never go to the battlefield as a superior heavenly demon. It would be easy to arouse suspicion, and if he was exposed, it would be all over. If you want to join the army, you must first remove your identity as a superior heavenly demon. The only way now is to leave the city as a superior heavenly demon and then enter the city with a different appearance. Ma Yujie suggested. That works. Zhuan nodded and decided to accept Ma Yujie's suggestion. For the next few days, Zhuan basically stayed in the inn. He knew very well that Mo Yongchang's informants must be near the inn. Although he revealed the demonic aura of a superior heavenly demon, Mo Yongchang would not be negligent and would definitely secretly watch his every move. Of course, Mo Yongchang did not dare to go too far and only let his informants watch from afar. At the same time, Yuan also asked Mo Shuji about joining the army in Burning Heaven Star City. Although Mo Shuji was puzzled, he did not dare to hold back and told him everything about joining the army. What made Zhuowen even more surprised was that Emo Shuji was also preparing to join the army and participate in the War of Gods and Demons in 3 months. Although I'm an ordinary heavenly demon, I also desire to make contributions and become an existence like you in the future. Speaking of joining the army, Emo Shuji's eyes were filled with excitement. Zhuowen did not say anything and only shook his head inwardly. Emo Shuji was just an ordinary heavenly demon and would only end up as cannon fodder if he joined the army. The probability of him making contributions was very small. In the next few days, other than cultivating the limitless demonic scripture in the inn, Zhuowen would leave the inn with Emo Shuji and stroll around Burning Heaven Star City. Soon, he memorized the entire city's geography. Zhuowen found that the speed of cultivating the limitless demonic scripture in the ancient Star City, especially the demonic domain, as he continued to cultivate the demonic scripture, the demonic scripture, the demonic scripture. And in less than a month, Zhuowen's cultivation reached the brink of a breakthrough. Brother Zhuo, you can leave Burning Heaven Star City now. When Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes from his cultivation, Ma Yuji's voice slowly rang out in his mind. Zhuowen nodded, stood up, and walked out of the inn with the little girl. At this moment, Emo Shuji was also called out by Zhuowen. My lord, are you leaving just like that? Emo Shuji's eyes were filled with disappointment when he learned that Zhuowen was leaving Burning Heaven Star City. During this period of time, with the help of Zhuowen's demonic might, he could hold his head high. Now that Zhuowen was leaving Burning Heaven Star City, he would lose this powerful support. It was inevitable that he would feel disappointed. I came to Burning Heaven Star City to settle down. There are more important things that I need to do. Zhuowen said indifferently. Emo Shuji's eyes flickered and he suddenly said, My lord, I want to follow by your side. I wonder if you can let me? Zhuowen said indifferently, You're not allowed. Hearing this, Emo Shuji smiled bitterly, but he did not dare to mention it again. After all, it was Lord Superior Heavenly Demon in front of him. How powerful was his strength? How could he casually provoke him? Farewell, my lord. Emo Shuji bowed to Zhuowen. Zhuowen was expressionless as he stepped out of the inn and headed toward the city gate. Inside the city lord's mansion, Emo Yongchang sat on the main seat. Listening to the servant's report, he said in surprise, That Lord Superior Heavenly Demon left just like that? After that lord came out of the inn, he walked straight toward the city gate. He should be leaving the city gate soon. The servant reported while kneeling on the ground. Emo Yongchang's eyes flickered, and he said in a deep voice, Follow me to send that lord off. As he spoke, Emo Yongchang strode out of the city lord's mansion and rushed toward the city gate. At this moment, outside Burning Heaven Star City's city gate. When Zhuowen just walked out of the city gate, after the guards at the city gate saw Zhuowen, they all knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Zhuowen continuously. Zhuowen didn't pay any attention to these kowtowing guards, instead minding his own business as he walked away from the city gate. The little girl followed behind Zhuowen silently, not saying a word, surprisingly obedient. Your Excellency, please wait. Suddenly, a loud and clear voice stopped Zhuowen. Zhuowen's footsteps paused, slowly turned around, and saw Emo Yongchang leading a large team, walking over quickly. So, it's the city lord. I wonder what's the matter? Although Zhuowen was flustered in his heart, he was calm and composed on the surface, saying with the air of an expert. Emo Yongchang sized up Zhuowen carefully from head to toe, cupped his fists, and said with a smile, Your Excellency left in such a hurry. This makes Yongchang feel apologetic, feeling that I didn't do my duty as a host. Zhuowen said coolly, City Lord is overthinking. I didn't come to Burning Heaven Star City to find you in the first place. Why do I need you to do your duty as a host? Emo Yongchang was slightly embarrassed, but also felt that what Zhuowen said was not without reason. After all, he was not familiar with Zhuowen at all. What friendship could there be? I wonder where Your Excellency is planning to go after leaving this trip? Emo Yongchang asked unyieldingly. Zhuowen's gaze turned cold, his scarlet eyes staring at Emo Yongchang, rolling fiendish pressure slowly spreading out. Are you questioning me? Zhuowen asked coldly. Mo Yongchang's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly bowed and said, "Your Excellency misunderstood. Yongchang is just concerned about Your Excellency, that's all. I don't have any intention of questioning. If you dare to ask me like this again next time, I'll directly destroy you. Do you believe me?" Zhuowen said calmly. Mo Yongchang wiped his cold sweat and repeatedly said that he did not dare. "Go back." Zhuowen flicked his sleeves and said, "But how could Mo Yongchang still dare to stay?" After giving a bow to Zhuowen, he brought the team and left in a sorry state. After Mo Yongchang and the rest left, only then did Zhuowen heave a sigh in relief inwardly and muttered to himself bitterly, "The power of a middle-rank sky fiend is really terrifying. I almost thought that I couldn't hold on anymore." Just now, although Zhuowen had a cold look, he was panicking terribly in his heart. Fortunately, Mo Yongchang admitted defeat and left in advance. Otherwise, Zhuowen would have made a fool of himself. Chapter 4694. After leaving the burning Heaven Star City, Zhuowen found a valley far away to rest. He was not in a hurry to return to the burning Heaven Star City as there was still some time before the battle between gods and demons. Zhuowen planned to use this time to properly control the demon infant's demonic power. He could feel that as the demon domain continued to be perfected, his control of the demon infant became more and more smooth. Of course, he also understood that the reason why he could control it so smoothly was that most of the demon infant's power was sealed by the primordial stone. His aura was still too weak. If he joined the army in his current state, he would most likely be eliminated. If he could fully control the demon infant, he could control the demon infant's demonic power to the level of an inferior heavenly demon. In this way, he should be able to join the army smoothly. For the next period of time, Zhuowen sat cross-legged in the valley and continued to cultivate the limitless demon scripture. Purple Jade was very well behaved. It stayed by Zhuowen's side and occasionally played with some small creatures in the valley, but it never disturbed Zhuowen. Of course, if Purple Jade was bored, it could directly enter the outside world to find Ma Yujia. Zhuowen's outside world had long been open to Purple Jade. If the latter wanted to enter the outside world, it only needed a thought to enter and exit. Half a month later, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. His whole body was surrounded by thick, liquid-like demonic qi, rolling and sweeping like an abyss. His pair of scarlet eyes were full of violence and killing intent. It seems that Brother Zhuo can freely control the demon infant's demonic power. Congratulations! Ma Yujia's voice sounded in his mind, with a trace of surprise and admiration. It's time to go to the burning Heaven Star City again. Zhuowen stood up, walked out of the valley, and headed toward the burning Heaven Star City. This time, because Zhuowen could freely control the extent of his demonic power, when he entered the city, he was not repeatedly checked because his aura was too weak and smoothly entered the city. After entering the city, Zhuowen headed toward the City Lord's mansion. During the time he was in burning Heaven Star City, under the guidance of Mo Suji, he had already figured out the entire city's terrain and streets. Naturally, he also knew where the City Lord's mansion was. The City Lord's mansion was located in the core of burning Heaven Star City and was heavily guarded. Ordinary heavenly demons did not have the qualifications to enter. When Zhuowen arrived at the vicinity of the City Lord's mansion, he saw several teams patrolling the area. The security was extremely tight. "Who are you?" A Sky Fiend soldier saw Zhuowen loitering nearby and walked over, questioning him coldly. "I'm here to sign up for the army. Is the City Lord's mansion still recruiting soldiers?" Zhuowen said with a smile. "So you joined the army?" The heavenly demon soldier sized up Zhuowen and found that the demonic aura he exuded was not weak at all. He was actually a low-level heavenly demon. His expression eased a lot. Most of the Sky Fiend soldiers were ordinary Sky Fiends. There were far fewer low-level Sky Fiends than ordinary Sky Fiends. The City Lord's residents naturally welcomed the low-level Sky Fiends joining the army. "Is there anything wrong?" Zhuowen saw that the Sky Fiend soldier was deep in thought and could not help but ask. "Come with me. I'll bring you to the registration area," the Sky Fiend soldier said as he turned and walked towards the City Lord's mansion. His eyes signaled for Zhuowen to follow. Juan followed the Sky Fiend soldier all the way into the city lord's mansion and finally stopped at a spacious and huge training field. At this moment, many Sky Fiends were gathered at the training field. However, these Sky Fiends were dressed very casually and did not look like Sky Fiend soldiers. These are the same as you. They're all here to join the army. Most of them are ordinary Sky Fiends. If they want to join the army, they must be tested. But you're different. Since you're a low-level Sky Fiend, you don't need to be tested. Our commander will personally appraise you and you can directly join the army. The Sky Fiend soldier smiled at Sun. After asking Juan to wait for a moment, he stepped into the depths of the training field and walked towards a graceful female Sky Fiend. This female Sky Fiend had been sitting at the front of the training field with several Sky Fiend bodyguards beside her. She was silently observing the Sky Fiends joining the army in the training field. Juan glanced at this female Sky Fiend and felt a chill run down his spine. He thought to himself, what a coincidence to meet this female Sky Fiend. This female Sky Fiend was none other than the female Sky Fiend that Juan and Ma Yujie had met when they first arrived in the primordial star system. He remembered that when Mo Yongchang had come to find him, this woman had been by Mo Yongchang's side. Her position in the city lord's mansion should not be low. The Sky Fiend soldier walked to the female Sky Fiend's side and whispered something in her ear. The female Sky Fiend lifted her head and could not help but glance at Sun. Although Juan was rather nervous, he looked very calm on the surface. He naturally trusted the primordial technique's disguise. Coupled with the demon infant's demonic aura, he did not think that this female Sky Fiend would be able to recognize him. Lord Emoji wants you to go over. After the Sky Fiend soldier returned, he whispered to Juan. Juan nodded and followed the Sky Fiend soldier, arriving in front of the female Sky Fiend. Juan lowered his head slightly and did not look directly at the female Sky Fiend. I am the City Lord's Deputy General, Emoji. Do you know me? Emoji said indifferently. I've heard of you, Juan said with his head still lowered. What's your name? Emoji asked. Emojua. Juan casually gave a name. Emoji nodded and said indifferently, since you're already a low-level Sky Fiend, you don't need to participate in the army assessment. Moreover, I can make you a centurion. The war of gods and demons is imminent. If you can perform well in this war, you'll be promoted to Chiliarch very quickly. With that said, Emoji took out a pitch-black token and threw it to Juan. She continued, this is the identity token of a centurion. You have the authority to lead 100 ordinary Sky Fiend soldiers. As for which ones you want to lead, you can choose for yourself. With that said, Emoji pointed to another empty space in the training ground. There stood many Sky Fiends dressed casually. Those are ordinary Sky Fiends who passed the assessment. You can choose as you wish. Emoji said indifferently. Quickly thank Lord Emoji. The Sky Fiend soldier hurriedly said to Juan. Thank you, Lord Emoji. Juan bowed pretentiously. Following that, Juan was led by the Sky Fiend soldier to the other side of the training ground to choose his soldiers from the ordinary Sky Fiends who had passed the assessment. Just as Juan was about to walk out of the training ground, a skinny figure attracted Juan's attention. In the training ground, a skinny and weak underage Sky Fiend was being viciously beaten by a veteran Sky Fiend soldier. I've said it before. You're too weak. You don't have the qualifications to join the army. If you continue to pester endlessly, see if I don't beat you to death. The veteran Sky Fiend soldier was exasperated. He lashed the skinny Sky Fiend viciously and kicked him mercilessly with his right foot. Let me try. I believe I can do it. I want to become a superior Sky Fiend like Lord Emowan. Only by joining the army can I do it. I beg you, let me in. I'll train very hard. I'm not afraid of hardship. The skinny Sky Fiend knelt on the ground and kowtowed continuously. No matter how hard he was whipped and kicked, his willpower still could not be shaken. Trash is trash. You're destined to be an ordinary Sky Fiend. You actually want to become a superior Sky Fiend. You're dreaming. The veteran Sky Fiend soldier was furious. He suddenly pulled out his large sword and chopped down at the skinny Sky Fiend's head. Wait. At this moment, a loud shout rang out. Chapter 4695. All the heavenly demons in the training ground looked over and realized that it was the low-tier heavenly demon who had just been conferred the title of Centurion by Lady Moji. "My lord, do you have any instructions?" The heavenly demon veteran stopped whipping and walked over to Mu Feng, bowing and nodding. Although Zhuan was a new recruit, he was a low-tier heavenly demon who had been directly conferred the title of Centurion. His status was much higher than a veteran like him, so he naturally did not dare to be rude to Zhuan. Zhuan's expression was cold as he pointed at the scrawny heavenly demon who was curled up and shivering on the ground. "I want this heavenly demon. Do you have any objections?" "My lord, this underage heavenly demon's physique is too weak. He's far from the standard to join the army. He won't be of any use on the battlefield and will only be a burden to you." The heavenly demon veteran looked hesitant, but he still bowed and suggested to Zhuan. "Will he be a burden to me? Do you think I don't know that?" Zhuan retorted coldly. The heavenly demon veteran was so scared that he trembled all over. He lowered his head and did not dare to speak anymore. The other heavenly demons who were watching the show kept quiet out of fear, not daring to say a word. "Get up and come with me." Zhuan pointed at the scrawny heavenly demon lying on the ground and said coldly. The scrawny heavenly demon stood up and looked at Zhuan with fear and hope in his eyes. He quickly followed. He was a clever heavenly demon. How could he not know that this lord had chosen him to join the army? "Thank you, my lord." The skinny heavenly demon hurriedly caught up and bowed to Zhuan. "Come with me." Zhuan did not even turn his head as he continued walking out of the training ground. He had chosen this scrawny heavenly demon because he was Mo Shuji, who had taken the initiative to be his tour guide in Burning Heaven Star City. Of course, he had chosen Mo Shuji because he felt that the latter was a promising talent. Although Mo Shuji was an immature heavenly demon, his physique and strength were weaker than an adult heavenly demon. However, this child's willpower was extremely firm, and he acted decisively and courageously. Otherwise, he would not have taken the initiative to talk to the superior sky fiend Zhuan. Ordinary heavenly demons would not dare to do such a thing, but Mo Shuji had done it. Walking out of the training field, Zhuan was led by the heavenly demon soldier to the group of ordinary heavenly demons who had passed the test. "This is the centurion appointed by Lady Mog. At the same time, he will choose 99 of you to be his personal guards." The heavenly fiend soldier glanced at the group of ordinary heavenly fiends who were lying on the ground. Disdain appeared in the depths of his eyes as he shouted coldly. Instantly, the ordinary heavenly demons stood up straight and looked at Zhuan with hopeful eyes. When they joined the army, they were not like Mo Suji who wanted to make a name for themselves. Most of them thought that joining the army would allow them to earn a living. At this time, choosing a kind and good leader was what they wanted the most. Although Zhuan looked cold, he gave them a good feeling. Many ordinary heavenly demons wanted to be under Zhuan's command. Zhuan glanced at the group of heavenly demons and found that there were close to 1,000 of them. He was too lazy to choose carefully and casually chose 99 heavenly demons. His purpose in joining the army was not to fight for the heavenly demons, but to sneak into the primordial god's side through the war of gods and demons. As soon as the war began, Zhuan would immediately start running. Who cared if he fought or not? The 99 heavenly demons who were chosen were all delighted. They all nodded and bowed to Zhuan, trying their best to curry favor. The heavenly demons who were not chosen were all disappointed. "This is my first choice. He's called Mo Shuji. If I'm not around in the future, listen to him, understand?" Zhuan pointed at Mo Shuji and sternly scolded the 99 heavenly demons. Yes. Rest assured, my lord, we will follow you and Mo Shuji's lead in the future." The 99 heavenly demons nodded. Although they were surprised by how weak Mo Shuji was, they did not dare to disobey Zhuan's orders. "My lord, this responsibility is too heavy. I'm still inexperienced." Mo Shuji was very nervous. He did not expect Zhuan to give him such an important task. This surprised and delighted him, but more than that, he was puzzled. He was not related to the lord in front of him, so why did the latter seem to take special care of him? "My lord, since you've chosen, I'll bring you to the tent first." The war between gods and devils is about to begin. In the following period of time, you have to spend some time to properly train these soldiers. The heavenly demon soldier smiled at Zhuan. Zhuan nodded and led Mo Shuji and the other heavenly demons to the tent. The tent was quite a distance away from the training ground. After arriving, Zhuan found that it was a huge open space. On the open space, there were many spacious tents. The moment Zhuan saw these tents, the corner of his mouth could not help but twitch. These tents were simply too lousy. They were simply casually set up. Who set up these tents? Zhuan could not help but look at the heavenly demon soldier and ask. Naturally, it was set up by the best heavenly demon in the city lord's mansion. Isn't it exquisite? My lord, please follow me. Your tent is here. The celestial demon soldier said proudly and brought Zhuan to a corner of the room. The tent in this position was even worse. It was full of holes. How was it any different from not having a tent? Zhuan looked helpless. No wonder Ma Yujie said that other than their natural strength, the other skills of these heavenly demons were really lousy. Now, he had finally seen it for himself. My lord, if there's nothing else, I won't disturb you. After saying that, the heavenly demon soldier cupped his hands at Zhuan and left. Next, Zhuan reorganized the 100 heavenly demons under his command. In his mind, he recalled the battle formations of the human side. After some thought, he decided to teach Mo Shuji about the battle formations. Their team could be said to be cannon fodder. The reason he taught them the array formation was to increase the survival rate of this team. These battle formations had been tested and could be used to increase one's battle strength in battle. Although he could completely ignore everything and leave when the battle began, he still could not bear to do so. Although gods and demons were at odds, war was never the fault of these ordinary heavenly demons. They were also victims. The ones who were truly at fault were the higher-ups of the heavenly demons who started the war and the ambitious heavenly demon king. Rise, the people suffer. Fall, the people suffer. Whether they won the war or not, the ones who suffered the most would always be those who were born at the bottom. Mo Shuji. Jun beckoned Mo Shuji over, and the latter hurriedly ran over. Before the battle, I will teach you a set of battle techniques. This battle technique requires the 100 of you to work together to form a formation. Zhuan slowly explained, passing some of the battle techniques in his mind to Mo Shuji so that he could train these soldiers. During this time, he had to train Mo Shuji to be independent. This way, after he left, he could quickly shoulder the burden alone and increase his survival rate. Chapter 4696. Only by establishing the authority of us centurions can we better command them. Let them be obedient to us. The three-horned heavenly demon spoke to Zhuan as if he was a senior teaching a junior. If you are not used to it, how about I teach these recruits a lesson for you? As he spoke, the three-horned heavenly demon glanced at Mo Shuji and the other recruits behind Zhuan. The ruthlessness in his eyes intensified, and there was even a trace of killing intent. Zhuan naturally felt the evil intentions in the three-horned heavenly demon's eyes. This person was obviously using the excuse of helping him teach the recruits to kill his recruits. No need. I will teach my soldiers myself. Zhuan said indifferently. I have fought in several battles, and my battle experience is much richer than yours. You just joined the army, so what do you know? Let me teach you. The three-horned heavenly demon did not care and continued to look at the recruits behind Zhuan. He did not care about Zhuan at all. Obviously, in his eyes, although Zhuan was also an inferior heavenly demon, he was still a recruit and was the easiest to bully. Scram! Zhuan suddenly raised his head, and a scarlet light burst out from his eyes. A terrifying demonic aura swept over like a tide. The three-horned heavenly demon's pupils shrank, and he could not help but stop in his tracks. He looked at Zhuan in horror. Although the demonic aura released by Zhuan was still the aura of an inferior heavenly demon, it was much more powerful and terrifying than most inferior heavenly demons. This is a guy who is about to become a middle heavenly demon. Are you kidding me? This guy actually chose to join the army. The three-horned heavenly demon trembled as he stared at Zhuan in horror. The moment Zhuowen released his terrifying demonic aura, it immediately caused a commotion in the camp. One by one, the centurions stopped their actions of showing off. Their scarlet eyes were all looking at Zhuowen's tent. They all felt the terror of the demonic aura, and their eyes were filled with fear and dread. "If you dare to take another step forward, I will kill you." Zhuowen sat cross-legged, unmoving like a mountain. His tone was cold and merciless, filled with cruel killing intent. The three-horned heavenly demon stood where he was, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. His entire body was soaked in sweat. He had indeed felt the terrifying killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes. He didn't doubt in the slightest that if Zhuowen made a move, he probably wouldn't be a match for him. However, he was very unwilling to retreat just like that. If he retreated, then where would his face be? Crush. Mu Feng stood up abruptly. At this moment, his demonic might seemed to have become even more terrifying, causing many of the ordinary heavenly demon recruits to be so scared that they were trembling on the ground. The three-horned celestial demon sighed in his heart. Suddenly, he cupped his fists at Zhuowen and smiled bitterly. "You win. I won't meddle in your affairs." As he spoke, the three-horned heavenly demon faced Zhuowen and slowly retreated. He was constantly on guard against Zhuowen attacking him. Chapter 4697. For the next period of time, Zhuowen basically stayed in the vicinity of the camp, either cultivating the limitless devil scripture or teaching the new soldiers under his command battle techniques. Mo Suji's comprehension was extremely good and could always draw inferences from one case, which surprised Zhuowen. During this period of time, he had come into contact with many heavenly demons and knew that Magatama's vitality was terrifying, but his comprehension was extremely poor. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to not even be able to set up a tent. However, Mo Suji was different. Although he was an ordinary heavenly demon, his comprehension was higher than most heavenly demons. He was also the first heavenly demon to fully comprehend the combat techniques and gave his own opinion. This made Zhuowen think more highly of Mo Suji. With Mo Suji's help, Zhuowen was much more free. The combat technique training was basically taught by Mo Suji, and Zhuowen only needed to sit cross-legged in front of the camp to cultivate. He realized that cultivating the limitless demon scripture in the primordial heavenly demons territory was like adding wings to a tiger. Especially the demon domain, its potential seemed to be limitless and could continuously become stronger. Finally, the battle between gods and demons was about to begin. Outside the camp, a female heavenly demon strode in, followed by a group of elite heavenly demon soldiers. "The city lord summons you. Gather at the training field immediately. Follow me now." This female heavenly demon was Mog. She looked around, and her indifferent voice slowly sounded, her voice resounding and impassioned. In an instant, the centurions in the camp immediately stood up, reorganized their troops, and left with Mog. Zhuowen was naturally no exception. He led Mo Suji and a group of new soldiers and silently followed behind. Soon, everyone arrived at the training field and stood still. On the high platform in front of the training field, Burning Heaven Star City's city lord Mo Yongchang stood with his hands behind his back, his sharp gaze sweeping across everyone. The battle between gods and demons is about to begin. Everyone is about to step onto the battlefield. If anyone is afraid now, you can choose to leave. Otherwise, once you step onto the star path, there will be no turning back. Mo Yongchang's voice was filled with majesty. Although it was not loud, it shook everyone's ears. The training field was silent, and no one proposed to withdraw or leave. Since no one wants to leave, then I will order someone to open the star orbit and send you to the northern and southern star region's border battlefield. Your commander this time is Mog. Once you're on the battlefield, listen to her commands. Mo Yongchang pointed at the female heavenly demon beside him. After confirming that everyone understood, he turned around and left. Soon, only Mog and the Sky Missouri soldiers on the practice field were left. "Come with me. The star path has been activated, and we can enter the border battlefield at any time." After Mog finished speaking, She walked out of the martial arts practice field without looking back. The Sky Demon soldiers in the practice field naturally followed closely behind and left the City Lord's mansion. The entrance to the Star Path was not in the City Lord's mansion, but in an inner city in the north of the Burning Heaven Star City. Since the star orbit was an extremely important object, the inner city in the north was naturally heavily guarded and heavily guarded. The group of Sky Demon soldiers went through layers of inspection before they entered the core of the northern inner city. In the center of the inner city, there was an incomparably huge and dazzling star. The top of this star was connected to a long rainbow that pierced through the sky, rushing into the unknown depths of the horizon. This is the star orbit? Zhuan raised his head to look at the boundless rainbow and the dazzling star. He immediately guessed that this was the star orbit. The immemorial gods are indeed powerful. Their creativity is much stronger than us heavenly demons. This star orbit is so intricate that it's impossible for us heavenly demons to create it. Mo Shuji raised his head to look at the star orbit, his eyes filled with passion and reverence. Activate the star orbit. Mog stood in front of the star orbit and shouted in a loud voice. Suddenly, heavenly demons in long robes appeared under the stars. These heavenly demons knelt on both sides of the star orbit, holding something like a crystal ball in their right hand. Their left hand formed a seal as they chanted. Soon, the crystal balls in the hands of these heavenly demons emitted a pitch-black light. Streams of demonic energy shot into the sky and surged into the star orbit. The originally resplendent and colorful star was immediately enveloped by endless black fog, instantly turning into an incomparably pitch-black star. It looked extremely strange. Ka-ka-ka. Blazing black light shot out from the pitch-black star and sprinkled down, forming a huge black staircase. At the end of the black staircase was the star orbit that had been dyed black by the demonic creatures. The star orbit has been activated. A female heavenly demon in the lead said with a calm expression. Then she slowly retreated with the other heavenly demons. Let's go! Mog waved her hand and stepped onto the staircase. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared from everyone's sight. Once Mog left, the group of soldiers stepped onto the staircase and instantly disappeared from the black staircase. Sir, let's go too. Mo Suji was eager to give it a try. Let's go. Zhuan nodded. He also wanted to see what the star orbit was. He wanted to see if it was similar to the teleportation array in the chaotic stars. The moment he stepped onto the staircase, he felt the world spinning around him. The starlight around him was hazy and quickly flew by. In his eyes, it turned into blurry rays of light that looked dazzling. This isn't teleportation. This is rapid travel. The moment Zhuan stepped onto the star orbit, he understood that the principle of the star orbit was completely different from the teleportation array. The teleportation array was a jump between spaces, while the star orbit followed a predetermined path and flew through space at an extremely fast speed. It seemed that the star orbit was slower than the teleportation array, but in fact, it was much faster. The star orbit was so fast that it was like teleportation. Zhuan didn't even have time to react before he arrived at his destination. As soon as Zhuan's feet touched the ground, he looked ahead and found that he was surrounded by an open space surrounded by mountains. On the open space, there were scattered tents and countless heavenly demon soldiers patrolling around. Mog stood at the front of the group. Similarly, when she saw the large number of heavenly demon soldiers in the open space around her, her expression changed. The scale of this battle of gods and demons was the largest of all the battles that Mog had participated in. The number of heavenly demon soldiers alone exceeded 10 million. Regardless of victory or defeat, many heavenly demons and primordial gods would die. Soldiers from which city are you from? At the entrance of the tent tribe, 2 heavenly demon soldiers walked over. They glanced at Mog and the many recruits behind her and asked indifferently, "We are from Burning Heaven Star City. I am the representative of Burning Heaven Star City this time." Mog said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. "Come with me. I will take you to see the deputy commander. He will arrange for you." One of the burly heavenly demon soldiers nodded and led Mog and the others into the tent tribe. The tent was in the center of the tribe. It was much sturdier and larger than the other tents. This tent was where the commander, deputy commander, and other higher-ups of the 10 million heavenly demon soldiers rested. The heavenly demon soldier entered the tent and reported. Then, a huge heavenly demon with a ferocious armor walked out of the tent. Chapter 4698. Are you the representative of Burning Heaven Star City this time? The giant heavenly demon was much taller than ordinary heavenly demons. He stood there like a small mountain, looking down at Mog in front of him. Mog greets the deputy commander. Mog hurriedly bowed, her eyes full of respect. No need to be so polite. My name is Mo Wuba, and the soldiers call me Commander Ba. You can call me that too. Mo Wuba looked quite forthright. His voice was like thunder, causing the surroundings to explode and the earth to shake. Many heavenly demon recruits were so shocked that they trembled, their eyes full of awe. All right, this token is your identity for this war. It records the location of your tents and your arrangement after the war begins. When you arrive at your tents, you can start training. The war between gods and demons is about to begin. You can't be careless. Mo Wuba took out a black token and solemnly handed it to Mog, reminding her with a serious expression. Don't worry, Commander Ba. We definitely won't dare to be careless. We will go all out in this war. Mog hurriedly cupped her hands and bowed. Men, bring them to the tents. Mo Wuba nodded in satisfaction and called a young heavenly demon soldier. After giving some instructions, he returned to the tents. Under the leadership of the young heavenly demon soldier, Mog led a group of recruits to their tents. Their tents were located at the edge of the open space, at the foot of a mountain range. The war is about to begin. After the war begins, everyone will have to resign themselves to fate. Also, in order to win the war, we must do whatever it takes. If our companions die, then eat them and let them be with us, increasing our strength. Mog's gaze was solemn as she continued. This way, we can carry the will and faith of our companions until we win the war. Do you understand? Zhuan stood in the crowd, silently listening to Mog's lecture. He had long known that heavenly demons had the custom of devouring their own kind. After many old heavenly demons died, they would ask young heavenly demons to devour them. From their point of view, this was a very normal custom. Those who were devoured would still be with them and had not truly passed away. It was the same for the heavenly demons in every war. If their comrades died, they would divide and devour them to strengthen their own demonic powers. Zhuan found it hard to adapt to this custom after learning about it. It had to be said that the difference between sky fiends, humans, and primordial gods was just too great. Many actions that were considered deviant in the eyes of the heavenly demons were normal. After the lecture, Mog dismissed the new soldiers and summoned their respective centurions to instruct them on the specifics of the battle. Mog, you stay. After the centurions left, Mog suddenly called out to Zhuan. Lord Mog, what are your orders? Zhuan asked in a low voice. I heard that you're teaching your new recruits battle tactics. It's impossible for a heavenly demon to know that combat technique. Why do you know it? Mog asked as she stared sharply at Zhuan. Zhuan was not in a hurry. When he was teaching combat technique, he knew that this matter could not be concealed. Lord Mog, I once accidentally found the ruins of a human cultivator and found many things related to the human race. I also found the combat technique from there. I'm quite interested in it and have been studying it. As Zhuan spoke, he took out many divine weapons, formations, and books related to the human race from the outside world and placed them in front of Mog. Mog glanced at them casually without any interest and said, I see. I don't object to you studying things related to the human race, but you have to know that the human race is a low-level creature. Only the weak need these supplementary things. We Magatama Celestial have terrifying life force, so why would we need these things to help us? Mog did not think too much about it and left after a few words of advice. Among the heavenly demons, there were many things that studied the human race and primordial gods. Therefore, Emoji did not feel that there was anything wrong with Zhuowen's excuse. Several days later, the great war of gods and demons finally began. In the endless plains, the heavenly demon army began to gather. At the front of the army, several imposing and terrifying demonic figures hovered in midair, looking down at the densely packed heavenly demon army. The demonic figure in the lead was abnormally tall and was surrounded by a dense demonic mist. A pair of scarlet eyes were faintly discernible in the rolling demonic fog, as if they could see straight into one's heart. The tall and mighty demonic martial tyrant was standing silently behind this demonic shadow, his eyes filled with respect and fear. I am the general of this war. My name is Mo Wuing. This war is very crucial. If we can conquer that natural moat, our heavenly demon army will be able to enter the 7 constellations constellation in the north and reach the hinterland of the primordial gods. If we can win, the primordial stars will belong to us heavenly demons, and the primordial gods will disappear from the world. The future will begin to belong to us heavenly demons. Mo Wuing hovered in midair, looking down at the countless heavenly demons below. His voice was soft, but it reached straight into everyone's hearts. Everyone could hear him clearly, as if his voice had risen from their hearts. It's Mo Wuing, one of the 36 demon generals under the heavenly demon king. He's a real big shot with the strength of a true demon. In the heavenly demon army, countless heavenly demons whispered, their eyes filled with reverence. Gun listened quietly. He finally knew Mo Wuing's background. The strength of heavenly demons was divided into ordinary, inferior, intermediate, and superior. Above superior heavenly demons was true demons. True demons were extremely terrifying, comparable to the primordial gods of the 28 constellations. It was said that they had an immortal body and were extremely difficult to deal with. Above true demons was the heavenly demon king. However, the heavenly demon king was extremely mysterious. Even the 36 demon generals had not seen his true appearance. Zhuan glanced at Mo Wuing, then looked into the distance. At the end of the mountain range, there was a huge moat that separated 2 huge mountains. In this trench, endless golden clouds were rolling. Within the clouds, there seemed to be huge beasts swimming around, stirring up waves of clouds. It was a spectacular sight. Zhuan looked at the golden clouds, his gaze turning serious. How could he not see that this golden cloud was actually an extremely terrifying killing formation? This killing array was far more powerful than any killing array he had seen in the primal chaos starry sky. This is the golden cloud dragon killing array. Brother Zhua, if you go in, you'll die without a doubt. Or rather, most of the heavenly demon army will die inside. Ma Yujia's voice suddenly rang in his mind. Mo Wuing is planning to use the lives of millions of heavenly demon army to forcefully break through the golden cloud dragon killing array. Zhuan frowned. Naturally, he knew what Mo Wuing was planning. Is there any way to avoid the golden cloud dragon killing array? Zhuan asked with a frown. This array only targets heavenly demons. Once you enter the array, immediately remove your heavenly demon aura. This way, the golden cloud dragon killing array will not target you. Ma Yujie said solemnly. Chapter 4699. Soldiers, charge with me. The heavenly demon king hovered in the air, waving his hand as he gave the order. Immediately, the heavenly demon army charged out in a mighty manner. They were like a surging torrent, and their might was unstoppable. The heavenly demon king, Mo Wuba, and the rest of the heavenly demon army's higher-ups were still hovering in the air, looking down at the heavenly moat. They had no intention of entering. Mo Shuji, if you trust me, find a chance to leave after entering the heavenly moat. Zhuowen whispered to Mo Shuji beside him as he followed the group forward. After knowing the heavenly demon king's intention, he knew that the heavenly demon army was probably just cannon fodder. Their goal was to break the golden cloud dragon array with numbers. Mo Shuji followed closely behind Zhuan. When he heard Zhuowen's words, he was stunned. Lord Mo Zhua, do you want me to be a deserter? Mo Shuji frowned. This battle is meaningless. You're all just cannon fodder. If you trust me, listen to me. That's all I have to say." After Zhuowen finished speaking, he did not say anything else and continued to rush forward. He had only met Mo Suji once, and he had already done his best to warn him to this extent. As for what choice Mo Shuji would make, it was up to him. Mo Shuji followed behind silently. His eyes were gloomy, and no one knew what he was thinking. When the heavenly demon army rushed into the heavenly moat, the vast and endless heavenly moat was terrifyingly quiet. "Follow me." The deputy commander said that the Archean god army is in the heavenly moat. "We must be careful at all times." Mog was leading the heavenly demons in Burning Sky Star City. Her voice was loud and clear as she shouted. However, as soon as she finished speaking, a golden pillar of light shot toward her and instantly pierced through her head. Plop. Mog's headless corpse fell limply to the ground. Black blood spurted out as her body convulsed violently. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He could feel a terrifying power from the pillar of light. That power was not something he could resist. If he was hit, he would definitely die. Bush, bush, bush. Countless similar pillars of light appeared in the natural moat in an instant, sweeping toward the heavenly demon army. In an instant, the entire heavenly demon army was in chaos, and many of them suffered heavy casualties. "Brother Zhua, don't go north, go east. Quickly get away from the heavenly demon army and disperse the heavenly demon aura on your body." In his mind, Ma Yujie's crazy voice suddenly sounded, causing Zhuowen to sober up a lot. Zhuowen activated his movement technique and dashed towards the east like a bolt of purple lightning. He knew very well that those terrifying light pillars were probably the result of the activation of the Great Golden Cloud Dragon formation at the heavenly moat. That level of formation was simply not something he could contend against. He had to escape. Zhuowen dispersed his demonic presence without even thinking after breaking away from the army of the celestial demons. He revealed his original appearance and continued to head east. Originally, there was a pillar of light aimed at Zhuowen, but after Zhuowen revealed his human appearance, it actually changed direction and went toward the other celestial demons. Zhuowen fled in a panic. He kept heading east and found that the golden fog was getting thicker and thicker. At the same time, the surrounding noise had completely disappeared, and it became extremely quiet. Finally, when the golden fog was so thick that it was almost invisible, Zhuowen stopped. He looked around and found that it was all extremely thick golden fog. Not only could he not see clearly, but even his divine sense could not penetrate the golden fog. "Brother Zhua, you can let us out now. This is the safe zone of the Great Golden Cloud Dragon formation. I think the people from the primordial gods will come looking for us soon." Ma Yujie's voice sounded again, but this time it was much calmer. Zhuowen nodded and released Ma Yujie and Purple Jade. The three of them stood in place, motionless, waiting silently. Not long after, several footsteps sounded from the depths of the golden fog. Then, Zhuowen found that the golden fog in front of him gradually dissipated, parting to form a wide path. Three figures emitting golden light slowly walked over. When they approached, Zhuowen discovered that the three of them were covered in golden armor. Their auras were vast and unparalleled, like three suns in the sky. The three of them stopped dozens of meters in front of Zhuowen, and their gazes fell on Ma Yujie and Purple Jade. Same race. The leader was burly, like a god who had descended to the mortal world. He had long golden hair and asked in surprise. Ma Yujie hurriedly cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Brothers, we're all of the same race. Primordial gods, can you take us to the other side of the heavenly moat?" The primordial god did not speak. His gaze passed Ma Yujie and Purple Jade and landed on Zhuowen. This person is not of the same race, but a human. His aura is so weak. Could he be a human from the chaotic cosmos? The primordial god asked indifferently. Zhuowen did not hide it and said with cupped hands, "That's right. You're lying. Kill him." The primordial god suddenly shouted and waved at the two behind him. Immediately, the two primordial gods strode over and rushed toward Zhuowen. "Wait." Ma Yujie and Purple Jade hurriedly blocked in front. "Why are you protecting this person? This person is clearly lying. He must be a spy from the heavenly demons. The leader of the primordial gods frowned slightly, feeling that Ma Yujie and Purple Jade were unreasonable, protecting an outsider. Brother, what he said isn't false. I came up from the chaotic cosmos with him. Ma Yujie said helplessly. Impossible. Ever since the heavenly demons invaded the primordial star system, the humans of the chaotic cosmos can't ascend to the primordial star system at all. How did you come up? The primordial god shook his head. We came in through the primordial tree. Ma Yujie said indifferently. The primordial tree? But that requires the primordial stone. Could it be that you... The primordial god seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes widened as he looked at Zhuan and Ma Yujie. You guessed right. We used the primordial stone to open the passage to the primordial tree. Ma Yujie nodded and said seriously. I can spare his life for now, but you're still too deliberate. I've decided to bring you to the 7 constellations constellation in the north first. When the time comes, the constellation gods will decide. The primordial god hesitated for a moment and waved his hand. The 2 primordial gods who wanted to kill Zhuan put away their weapons. We'll detain the 2 of you for now. You'd better not resist. The primordial god said indifferently. Zhuan frowned slightly, but when he saw Ma Yujie shaking his head at him, he could only allow the 2 primordial gods to restrain his hands. In fact, he also understood that he was too weak. Even if he wanted to resist, it was probably not very likely. Let's go. Don't worry, as long as you're cleared of suspicion, you'll be accepted by us again. The primordial god's expression eased a lot when he saw that the 2 of them were so cooperative. As for the cub, it silently followed behind Zhuowen and Ma Yujie. Its big watery eyes were a little red. Chapter 4700. Roar. After walking for about half an hour, an earth-shattering dragon roar sounded from the depths of the blazing golden clouds. The dragon roar was getting closer and closer, and the golden clouds in front of them parted to both sides. Zhuowen's pupils constricted as he saw a huge golden dragon slowly sink into the middle of the parted golden clouds and appear in front of everyone. This is the array spirit of the golden cloud dragon array. Only under the array spirit's guidance can we leave this array. The leader of the primordial gods glanced at the surprised Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the others and patiently explained. After interacting with each other along the way, the 3 primordial gods' doubts about Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the others gradually disappeared. After chatting for a while, they learned each other's names. The leader of the primordial gods was called Hongguang, and he was an intermediate primordial god. The ranks of the primordial gods were similar to those of the primordial celestial demons. They were also divided into ordinary, inferior, intermediate, and superior. Above the superior primordial gods were the 28 constellation gods. The constellation gods were stronger than the true demons of the primordial celestial demons, but they were not as strong as the celestial demon kings. Huan was quite puzzled. Since the primordial celestial demons had a celestial demon king who ruled over them, why didn't the primordial gods have a celestial king who ruled over them? However, since Hongguang did not say much, Huan did not ask further. Even Ma Yujie was secretive about this matter. In any case, judging from their performance, there was no celestial king on the primordial god's side, or perhaps there was a problem. Let's go up. Hongguang called out and stepped onto the dragon's head first. Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Purple Jade stepped onto the dragon's body with the help of the other 2 primordial gods. Roar! The golden cloud dragon let out an earth-shattering roar and rushed up to the sky. As they climbed higher and higher, Zhuowen looked down and his vision gradually became clearer. Countless heavenly demon army below were fighting with many dazzling golden figures. Countless beams of light shot out and annihilated countless heavenly demons. Zhuowen looked over and found that those dazzling golden figures were the primordial god soldiers. What shocked him was that the primordial god soldiers were far fewer than the heavenly demon army. Even with the power of the golden cloud dragon array, they were only evenly matched with the heavenly demon army. Sigh. The primordial gods sighed now. The number of soldiers who can fight is dwindling. If not for the Heaven's Moat and the Golden Cloud Dragon formation, we might not even be able to defend the 7 constellations galaxy in the north. Hong Guang also lowered his head to look at the battlefield below. His fists were tightly clenched, and his eyes were filled with resentment and regret. Jin Yunlong's speed was extremely fast. In an instant, he crossed the heavenly moat and arrived at the other side. God Celestial 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 Demon Army, Celestial Celestial Heavenly Celestial 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 Celestial. Many primordial divine warriors were standing in front of the cannons, controlling them to fire down fearsome cannon fire that resembled beams of light. Streaks of light converged to form a universe of light that blasted toward the battlefield below, blasting the heavenly demons into smithereens. When Jin Yunlong reached the top of the wall, many primordial god soldiers looked up. When they saw that it was Hong Guang, they looked away and continued to fire at the Golden Cloud Dragon formation. Soon, Jin Yunlong crossed the white jade wall and landed on the vast plain behind it. After Zhuowen and the rest descended, Jin Yunlong soared into the sky and returned to the heavenly moat. This is the camp of the ancient gods? Zhuowen raised his head to look at the countless magnificent palaces in front of him and asked in surprise. Yes, we built it temporarily, Hong Guang said with a smile. The corners of Zhuowen's eyes twitched as he looked at the luxurious palaces in front of him and thought of the Heaven Devil Army's camp. The contrast between the two camps was really obvious. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. The identification of your identities and such will be left to the constellation god to decide. The one in charge of the war this time was Lord Constellation God. I'll take you to see him. Hong Guang looked at Zhuowen and the other two, smiled, and led them to the tallest temple in the center of the camp. Of course, the shackles on Zhuowen's body were still there. As long as they were not cleared of suspicion, the shackles could not be removed. On the other hand, Zhuowen's pupils couldn't help but shrink when he heard the 2 words Zhensu. If he remembered correctly, the Zhen Constellation Divine Chariot on him was the masterpiece of this Zhen Constellation Divine Chariot, right? The primordial slate was also made by this constellation god. Speaking of which, this constellation god seemed to have a unique hobby of inventing and making. Thinking of this, Zhuowen could not help but look at the rows of cannons behind him. He wondered if these cannons were also the work of this constellation god. Soon, under Hong Guang's lead, Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Ziyu entered the tallest temple. The divine hall was extremely spacious and desolate, and he actually didn't see any attendants or soldiers all along the way. Finally, the group stopped in the deepest part of the temple. Here, there was a long staircase leading upwards, and at the end was a divine throne. However, there was no one on the divine throne. Lord Constellation God. This lowly one found 2 of his race and a human cultivator in the enemy's battlefield. Lord Constellation God, please come and make a decision. Hong Guang walked to the front of the divine throne, knelt on the ground, and respectfully asked for instructions. Ma Yujie and the other 2 looked at each other, their hearts filled with strange expressions. There was clearly no one in this temple, so why was Hong Guang kneeling and bowing to the empty divine throne? The enemy discovered it? That's interesting. Suddenly, an ancient and low voice came from the divine throne. Zhuowen and the others looked over, only to see a short figure walk out from behind the divine throne. Little child? The moment Zhuowen saw this short figure clearly, his pupils could not help but constrict. This short figure was only about a meter tall. With his hair tied up in a bun, he looked like a 4- or 5-year-old child. However, this child had his hands behind his back like an old man, slowly walking to the front of the divine throne. With a light step, he jumped up and sat on the divine throne. Don't be rude. This is Lord Constellation God of Constellation. Hurry and kneel. Hong Guang hurriedly reminded in a low voice when he saw that Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the others were stunned on the spot. No need for formalities. This old man hates this kind of red tape the most. Next time, you don't have to kneel and bow to me. How troublesome. Constellation God of Constellation waved his little hands repeatedly and said impatiently. Hong Guang stood up somewhat awkwardly and scratched his head. Only then did the child's gaze fall on Jun, Mayuja, and Purple Jade, and said calmly, "These three are indeed of the same race and human race, not heavenly fiends in disguise." Hong Guang heaved a sigh of relief in his heart and said, "Then can we accept them back to the northern 7 constellations starfield?" "Of course. Don't you know that we're short of people? No matter how small a sesame seed is, it's still meat. Of course we have to accept the 3 of them." Constellation God of Constellation said impatiently. "Lord Constellation God of Constellation, this lowly one has something to report." Hong Guang cupped his hands again. "Day after day you're always so nosy. Say it." Constellation God of Constellation crossed his legs and said, "They said they came from the chaotic starfield." Before Hong Guang could finish, Constellation God of Constellation suddenly stood up and instantly appeared in front of Hong Guang. Chapter 4701. The immemorial star system has long been closed to the chaotic starry sky. How did you enter the immemorial star system? The constellation god stared at Jun and Ma Yujie in disbelief. "Lord Constellation, we entered the immemorial star system through the primordial tree." Ma Yujie hurriedly cupped his fists. The constellation god narrowed his eyes and frowned. "Enter the immemorial star system through the primordial tree? Although this method works, there is a prerequisite. Could it be that you have collected 4 primordial stones?" Jun and Ma Yujie looked at each other and nodded. This matter would be known sooner or later, so there was no need for them to hide it. "No wonder." The constellation god nodded with a thoughtful look. Suddenly, his eyes fell on Jun and carefully sized him up. "You seem to have the aura of my item." The constellation god waved his sleeve lightly. Immediately, the divine chariot and the design hidden in the great world flew out of Zhuowen's control and appeared in the sky above the temple. "Is this Lord Constellation's chariot?" "No, this divine chariot is much inferior to Lord Constellation's. Its aura is a little too weak." Hong Guang raised his head to look at the chariot in the sky and could not help but reveal a look of surprise. The constellation god waved his right hand and summoned the design and chariot to his right. With a complicated look in his eyes, he said, "I never thought that I would see this design again. You should have obtained the primordial stone slab, right?" Jun nodded and said, "Yes. I entered the primordial stone slab in the chaotic starry sky and solved the puzzle inside, thus obtaining this design." Good. I believe that you are from the chaotic starry sky. Can you return this design to me?" The constellation god looked at Zhuowen with a look of inquiry. Zhuowen was stunned. For some unknown reason, he actually sensed a strand of deep sorrow from the depths of the constellation god's eyes, and it seemed as if she'd recalled an extremely painful matter. "Of course, this chariot originally belonged to Senior. Now is the time to return it to its rightful owner." Zhuowen cupped his fists and said. The constellation god nodded and returned the chariot to Jun. He sighed softly and said, "Hong Guang, take them to rest in the tent. I'm a little tired." "Yes." Hong Guang did not dare to be negligent. He cupped his fists and led Ma Yujie and the others out of the temple. Sometimes, fate is really wonderful. After Hong Guang and the others left, the constellation god gently stroked the design in his hand gently and sat down on his throne, a look in his eyes. "Brother Hong Guang, what's wrong? Lord Constellation God? He doesn't seem to be in a good mood." After walking out of the temple, Ma Yujie asked with a face full of surprise. Hong Guang said in a low voice, "Lord Jinsu should have thought of someone when he saw the object. Sky, 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 sky. Sky, 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 God, God. God. Sky, sky, sky." His son is a famous rising star of our ancient star system. He is a true genius and has the potential to become the new constellation god in the future. Hong Guang said with a hint of admiration in his eyes. Clearly, he admired the son of the constellation god of Zhen constellation very much. The primordial slate has fallen into the primal chaos starry sky. Could it be? Zhuowen frowned. Lord Jinsu's son was called Julian, and he had once fought against the true demon general of the primordial heavenly demons. Although he managed to injure the general, he was struck down from the primordial star system and his fate was unknown. Later on, Julian's life medallion completely shattered, which means that he should have died. What a pity! Hongguang sighed regretfully at the mention of Julian. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie exchanged a glance. They finally knew who the primordial god who had fallen in the chaotic starry sky was. As it turned out, that ancient god's name was Julian, and he was the son of the constellation god. It was all thanks to Julian. Even though he had fallen, he had always protected the 100 territories of the outer realm, preventing them from being affected by the immeasurable calamity. 3 of you. You can stay in this side hall for the time being. After the battle has calmed down, we will bring you back to the city in the 7 constellations starfield. Hongguang said with a smile. Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the other 2 naturally agreed. Hongguang left after giving a few more instructions. But what a big house! After entering the side hall, Ziyu could not help exclaiming with an excited smile on her little face. Although it was called a side hall, it was extremely large. There were 2 floors inside with a total of 8 rooms. Each room was decorated extremely beautifully. Our primordial gods are still the best. We know how to enjoy ourselves. Those heavenly demons are simply extremely crude. Even their tents are a mess. Ma Yujie said leisurely as he sat down on the soft seat in the central living room with a comfortable expression on his face. Zhuan said worriedly, Brother Ma, the current situation of the primordial gods is really not optimistic. As the saying goes, if the primordial gods keep defending passively, they won't be able to hold on for long. Hearing this, Ma Yujie's face suddenly turned gloomy. So, this is also something that can't be helped. There are too many heavenly demons, and they are not afraid of death when fighting. They can also strengthen themselves by devouring their own kind. No matter how strong our primordial gods are, we will be exhausted to death by them. Ma Yujie said with a deep sigh. Zhuowen smiled bitterly. Speaking of which, he did not have a better way. The only thing he could do now was to cultivate. The energy in the primordial star system was much denser than the chaotic starry sky. Zhuowen's cultivation here was much more efficient than the chaotic starry sky. He was very clear that his current strength was too weak. Whether it was the matters in the primordial star system or the immeasurable calamity that was about to befall the lower realm, it was not something that he could contend with now. Time gradually passed. The battle between the gods and demons became more and more intense. Every day, a large number of injured primordial gods were transported back to the camp. The constellation god of the chariot constellations personally came out to command the battle. Even so, the number of injured was still increasing, like an endless tide. In the end, Yun and Ma Yujie were also dragged to do manual labor to treat the injured. Fortunately, Zhuowen's alchemy skills were quite strong. Under the guidance of some alchemists in the camp, he learned very quickly and was able to treat the injured independently. Zhuowen found that although the primordial gods were powerful, they were not as good as the human race in alchemy and alchemy. The reason why their healing effects were better than the human race was mainly because their medicinal herbs were extremely high grade. The medicinal effects themselves were hundreds or thousands of times stronger than the divine medicines in the chaotic starry sky. Even if they did not need to be refined into divine pills, most injuries could be healed. If they could be refined into divine pills, they would be able to make better use of the medicinal power of these herbs and treat more injuries. However, although the primordial gods also had alchemists, they were all respected. Naturally, they would not easily come to the battlefield to refine divine pills for ordinary primordial gods. They also disdained to do so. Therefore, after understanding the characteristics of the herbs in the primordial star system, Yun tried to refine divine pills himself. After several failures, he finally found the pattern and successfully refined them. Chapter 4702. This is a divine pill? Where did it come from? In the main hall, the constellation god held a pill with divine splendor in his right hand, his face full of surprise. This divine pill was given to him by the alchemist in the camp. But what puzzled him was that the alchemists of the immemorial gods were arrogant and never refined divine pills for the army. Why did they have divine pills in their camp? Moreover, he found that these divine pills were much weaker than the real immemorial divine pills, but they were indeed stronger than medicinal herbs. From this, it could be seen that the alchemist who refined this divine pill was not of a very high level, but this kind of low-level divine pill was actually enough for ordinary immemorial gods. Sir, it's that human cultivator who refined it. The alchemist was quite excited as he continued. Although this human cultivator's alchemy skills are much weaker than the real immemorial divine alchemists, his understanding of medicine is very thorough. Refining the divine herbs in our camp into pills has greatly increased the efficiency of medicinal herbs, and the healing effect is far better than medicinal herbs. The constellation god raised his eyebrows and said, "That human cultivator named Jun is actually an alchemist. Quickly invite him over." The alchemist quickly bowed and left the main hall. After a while, the alchemist came in with Jun. "Greetings, constellation god." Jun cupped his hands and bowed to the child on the divine throne. "You did well. You can actually refine the medicinal herbs in our camp into pills. May I know what level your alchemy skills are?" The constellation god showed a satisfied look and asked with a smile. "Fifth heavenly layer eternal realm." Jun did not hide it. Fifth heavenly layer eternal realm? The constellation god's face was full of disbelief as he continued. "Your alchemy skills are not high, but you can refine the divine herbs in the immemorial star system into pills." The lowest level of divine herbs in the immemorial star system was far from being refined by a fifth heavenly layer eternal realm alchemist, let alone refining them into divine pills. But this human youth in front of him had actually succeeded, which really made him feel a little incredulous. "Now that I've figured out the medicinal theory, I can freely come up with the pill formulas and use them to refine new healing divine pills. Although my divine fire is too weak to refine the divine herbs of the immemorial star system, I can let the alchemists refine them. Then, I can match the corresponding divine pill formula. That's how divine pills are refined." Jun cupped his fist at the constellation god and explained with a smile. The herbs in the immemorial star system were of a much higher grade than those in the primal chaos starry sky. The divine fire within Zhuo Jingwen's body was too low level. It was simply unable to completely refine these medicinal herbs into medicinal liquid, let alone refine them into pills. He basically stayed in the barracks to instruct those alchemists to refine pills. Although those alchemists had powerful divine flames in their bodies, their understanding of medicinal theory was very shallow. They had never systematically studied alchemy. With Zhuowen's guidance, the pharmacists in the barracks had a deeper understanding of alchemy, and their skills had also improved. Of course, Jun also learned many things from these pharmacists. For example, the characteristics of many medicinal herbs in the ancient star system and how to combine them to bring out the best medicinal properties. "So that's how it is." The constellation god nodded, but he was still shocked. He knew that Jun had never come into contact with the many divine herbs and alchemy books of the immemorial star system. Just by relying on his grasp of the medicinal properties of the herbs, he could create his own pill formulas and refine healing divine pills. This required extremely powerful talent and creativity. Thinking of this, the constellation god took a deep look at Zhuan and clicked his tongue in amazement. "Zhuan, you are very talented in alchemy. At the same time, thank you for refining divine pills for our barracks. After this battle is over, I will help you find some alchemy books. I hope they will be helpful to you." The gaze of the Zhun constellation god toward Zhuowen became much gentler as he smiled. "Many thanks, Lord Constellation." Zhun quickly cupped his fists and bowed. There was a touch of excitement in the depths of his eyes. He had long wanted to take a look at the alchemy books of the ancient star system. This way, his alchemy skills could be further improved. He might even surpass the fifth heaven of the eternal realm. Of course, Zhuan also wanted to take a look at the array books. However, after thinking about it, he did not mention it. After all, the constellation god had already promised to give him the alchemy books. If he also asked for the array books, he would be too greedy. He decided to find an opportunity later and go to other places in the ancient star system to see if there were any corresponding array books. Next, the constellation god asked Zhuan a few more questions and asked him to leave. Soon, only the constellation god was left in the main hall. They can enter the ancient star system from the chaotic starry sky. They must have gathered all the primordial stones. The constellation god's eyes were filled with complex emotions. He muttered to himself, I really didn't expect that the primordial tree would choose this human. I'm looking forward to seeing what this human will do when he reaches the ancient star system. Haitang bookstore. What kind of performance will he have? After all, those who can be chosen by the primordial tree are not ordinary people. I hope this Zhuan won't disappoint me too much. The battle between the gods and demons continued, and the fighting became more and more tragic. The entire golden cloud dragon array burst out with earth-shattering dragon roars at every moment. Countless shouts rose into the sky and spread to the other side of the heavenly moat. More and more wounded soldiers were transported back from the front line. Yun, Mayujie, and the others followed the pharmacist and became busier. In addition to bandaging the wounds of the wounded, they also had to refine healing pills. They were so busy that they didn't even have time to rest. Ziyu was very obedient. When Zhuan and Mayujie were busy, she took the initiative to help, which improved the efficiency of Zhuan and Mayujie's treatment. Zhuan's reputation in the barracks grew. Almost every soldier in the barracks knew of Zhuan's great name. They all knew that a human cultivator called Zhuan had appeared in the barracks. He had superb alchemy skills and refined divine pills for them, saving many wounded soldiers. Unknowingly, Zhuan's prestige had increased greatly. In the barracks, he was only slightly above the constellation god. If Zhuan walked around the barracks, all the primordial divine soldiers he encountered would greet him warmly. Some even saluted Zhuan with gratitude. To them, doctors were like their parents. If it weren't for the divine pills refined by Zhuan, they wouldn't have recovered so quickly. There were even some soldiers who were on the verge of death and couldn't be saved by divine medicine alone, but with the help of divine pills, their lives were saved. These people were the most grateful to Zhuan. Every time they met Zhuan, they would call him Sir. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.